has it started? Hi, welcome to the Derp with Kurp. What a special derp I have for you today because I got Narco Longo from Old World Florida podcast, who's friends with Juan, the only homunculologist that I've ever known. I'm pretty sure. We're going to talk to him right now. Okay, bring in Dr. Longo. Wait, is that? I don't see him. Hey, man.
Hey, Kurp. How's it going?
Thank you. Thank you for using my correct name. And what are you a doctor for real, or what just happened? Oh,
No.
yeah. Oh,
So
nice. Because I am an
I
astronaut. I'm not making it.
yeah, I am not a doctor, but that's more of just a YouTube moniker.
Yeah,
But I
I'm
am
in.
I'm actually currently earning my doctorate in
Oh,
gynecology. So
I wouldn't even put in that much effort. I just sit up a cheap motel room like that guy that Oprah talked. Lure women in. He put a sign inside a motel room. It's very hard to find a good motel gynecologist. I can tell you that.
yeah.
Okay. I would like to make like a warning pamphlet of like, does your gynecologist have a teardrop tattoo right here? You know, like little. Okay, it's very Florida, is what I'm saying. Very current world Florida, I would say.
Yeah.
Old world Florida. What do you wait? Are you really getting a doctorate in gynecology or no?
No. The only schooling I got was in marine biology. So
No kidding. Dolphin stuff.
yeah, I didn't get too far along.
Okay.
What I do now is I run a bookstore with my brother.
Oh,
That's
that's cool.
that's where I am now. But no, the doctor thing's just a silly YouTube name. My Narco Longo, it's my name rearranged, like an anagram. So
And I keep hearing Narco, and I keep thinking Narco Rubio, his old, Marco Rubio's old nickname of Narco Rubio, because his brother-in-law worked for some fucking drug dealer in Florida.
I
His
didn't.
brother-in-law was a drug smuggler, and then he was running, and they say, "Oh, Narco Rubio," because he is from a fucking narco fan, scumbag.
Yeah, I hadn't heard the explanation on that, but
I mean, listen, if you still believe in the thing at this point, we might as well just say we might as well say you're a doctor if we're going to believe that America should be a podcast now. All right. So first question I want to ask you, because my fifth wife, Jenna's from Florida, Jacksonville, and she knows all this weird ass shit about Florida. And there's a fort, and I don't know where it is. I can't remember where she told me, but the stories about people seeing ghosts there, their feet are like, like 6 inches like lower than the floor they're in. Like it's almost like they're stuck in the floor. People see, and I've never heard that before. And it seemed very like, I think the thing has sunk a little bit over the years too. So almost like they're attached to that. It was one of the weirdest stories I ever heard, just because of that. I don't normally give a shit about ghost stories, but I thought that's very interesting that everybody sees the same thing where they're not, like they're attached to the floor, almost like they were a hologram built in a floor a long time ago, and then the place sank, so now they pop out.
yeah, that makes sense. I don't know which fort that is, but we had a couple haunted forts in Florida just off the top of my head. We got Fort Jefferson over near the Keys.
Okay.
That's actually where all of the Lincoln assassins were imprisoned. During the Civil War, shortly after. So there's some bad juju at that place. The Tartarian people are all over this Fort Jefferson. It's like a total anomaly. But there's
What do you mean
another.
Tartarian? Taters?
Well, there's this.
Tartars?
Yeah, it's not my. I'm not really into the whole theory, but the people who say, a lot of.
I don't understand it, actually.
Well, if we had to sum up the whole Tartaria thing, it's basically like the new Atlantis. So maybe like
that's how I took it.
Yeah, like 200 years ago, anytime someone found like an old city, ruins in the woods or underwater, they'd say, "All right, this is Atlantis." No matter where it was, that's just kind of like you kind of just pigeonhole everything into Atlantis because that kind of explained everything. It was just kind of the place you put mysteries. Oh, that's Atlantis.
Yes, that is my personal J.J. Abrams mystery box of wonders. Atlantis.
Now, recently, since this, maybe in the last 10 years, there's been this YouTube movement and explosion on and off YouTube where people kind of switched from Atlantis being like the kind of coverall explanation, and
Yes,
now they're using Tartaria, which is a real piece of history. Is a real place.
there's a
Over.
city called that, or a village or something currently in Romania. Because Mark Windows was on talking about, because he's a good video about it, Tartaria.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, these names are real arbitrary, man, of what people call them, and that's what jumped out at me. What you just said, the metaphorical overlay of Atlantis constantly. It's like it gets rewarmed into a new package every. I guess everybody just. There's not that many ideas out there.
Well, here's something about Atlantis. So, cool little clue. Atlantis comes from Plato, more or less. The original Atlantis story.
He claims he got it from his uncle or something.
Yeah, a friend's uncle or an uncle of his. Solon was the gentleman who maybe took this story over from Egypt to Greece. Okay. But basically, Timaeus and Critias, which are Plato's works that the Atlantis myth comes out of,
okay,
they're actually almost like the sequel to the Republic. And a lot of people forget that. A lot of people ignore that fact because they'll teach the Republic in every school, but they won't touch the Atlantis stuff because that's,
well, I've never read the Republic, so that's where
yeah, so basically much of what we know of as government and politics and justice and all that and virtue, much of it traces back in the Western world to Plato and Plato's Republic. So the Atlantis story is almost like a sequel to that. And that's a big missing link. And in the Republic and in some other of his works, Plato talks about the need to kind of lie or mythologize to the populace to kind of give them a noble origin story. He basically
right, like a Romulus and Remus weirdo story, right? Like
a little bit. Plato basically says, find a point so far back in history that if you're going to make something up, it's not a lie because we don't even know what was happening back then. So
right,
if the story is mythological or fictionalized and it's still instilling virtue, it's a good thing. It's truth without facts. You know what I mean? And
right.
that's one of the kind of core elements of religion and philosophy is you get into the.
Can I ask you something? Do you think Plato, because Matt Ehret claims that it's Neoplatonists, Platonists who made it like the way you're describing that I fucking can't stand, that noble lie bullshit. He claimed, not because I haven't read any of it. I'm a humble sea captain and judge and astronaut, but he said Plato was kind of like just describing what they do, and then Neoplatonists turn into like a thing that we descriptive versus prescriptive.
Yes, there's a very it's very interesting because Plato is the source of so much of what we take for granted today in terms of ideas. It's easy to see him kind of from the wrong perspective because we're very much downstream.
Yeah, right. I'm at the end of the human centipede on this one.
So basically, you can take so many of Plato's concepts. Plato was such an idealist. He did believe in perfection. He believed in unattainable truths, unattainable ideals.
Platonic forms, if you will.
Exactly. Now, because of that, it's almost like how some people try to explain Karl Marx. If you've ever heard gurus, people look at Karl Marx from more of a guru perspective and say,
I've never heard that, but that's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, I detest this and I disagree with it, but it's basically saying Karl Marx was so much of an idealist, he can't be held responsible for how poorly his ideas have been applied. And I'm not a Marx guy. I hate Marx.
I wouldn't even give that to a guru that you have. Yeah. I would hold the guru responsible. You're a goddamn guru. I know. You couldn't plan ahead. There might be an issue.
But basically, the commune, more or less, whether Marx knew it or not, is modeled after the family. Communism belongs in the home. You know what I mean? Like, it's
he did it that way. I thought the thing was that's why his dad was calling him Satan and shit, because he was like classic. Well, I hate my family. And you know what the problem is? All families. Like he's Willy Wonka in the horrible Tim Burton remake.
Well, to me, I think Marx probably is burning in hell, just from me. But to bring it back to Plato, basically, Plato's ideas are sometimes they come across as almost naive, like because he believed in good nature so much. He's on the opposite end of the Gnostics in a lot of ways. But basically,
Is there? Can I ask you a side thing with Gnostics?
yeah.
Because I think the last one, Courtney Turner, was saying something about big G Gnosticism, and I couldn't figure out which one she meant specifically by that. I thought that's a catch-all term. Is there like a main one that anybody would? And that's certainly probably not the correct way to think about it, but I'm just trying to figure out what in the hell she could have meant.
So
Probably should tag her, but I didn't.
okay, well, basically with Plato, the ultimate the way to kind of see this is Plato, his views on the family, for example. Why I'm bringing up the family and Marx. Plato had some ideas that, if you look at them through today's lens, they look exactly like the UN climate change, micro home agenda,
Really?
yeah, some of Plato's ideas were basically they seem very appealing to kind of the establishment today with the technocracy and the mass surveillance, and so I love Plato.
Well, especially if you're an old homo like me, then it sounds really good.
The best way to view Plato is as a proto-Christian, as a
Do they view him that way generally? I feel like a lot of the people.
Most Christians don't.
Now, well, not how I grew up, but I know that, like, if you're a more educated, fancy pants Christian, you might look upon it that way.
So a lot of, not all, but many of the Greek Orthodox thinkers and mystics, because of that linguistic tie to Plato, they're still steeped in the same tradition and somewhat the same culture. They do give Plato his dues. Other churches, most of them not as much. Now, there are some Protestants who leaned very heavily Neoplatonic. I like some Neoplatonism. I like Plato more. I like the Bible the best. I like Jesus the best.
Okay, what do you like about Neoplatonism?
Well,
the new Platonism.
So, the one thing I like about the Neoplatonists is they were kind of the iron that helped sharpen Christianity. There was almost kind of like a pirate shootout going on, where like three people had guns pointed at each other. You had like the Gnostic Christians.
A trialectic?
You had like the Gnostic Christians, the Neoplatonists, and what would become the mainstream Christians.
It's around when, like, roughly? Because this is early, right? It's got to be early on.
Yeah, 200, 300, 400 AD.
Oh, okay, so it's like not that long after. Okay.
Yeah, 600 AD, still a little bit, but, Neoplatonism's kind of a time period. It's kind of a movement. It's kind of both. But I like Plato, so the main thing we can be thankful to the Neoplatonists for is helping to preserve Plato and to weave him into the societal fabric of the West. Up until the Neoplatonists, most people in the West had never heard and almost certainly never had the chance to read Plato. And the dark, people call it the Dark Ages.
Is it dark because we just don't know a lot about it, or is it dark because they want to make it? Oh.
So it's true that people were burning books for fuel because many people couldn't read.
It was dark out there.
Staying hot, staying warm was more important. That's true for large parts of, medieval or Dark Age Europe. But Islam also has to do with a lot of it. So Islam had the privilege of inheriting and gaining access to Aristotle, Plato, many ancient thinkers because of not only proximity, geography, they're kind of closer to there, but also in some ways they were open-minded, especially in a early, the early expansion of Islam. They were hungry for new ideas and hungry for the best ideas, and once they kind of reached their maximum, their prime, the largest point that they could sustain. After that, they get very much conservative and allergic to other ideas, and then the West starts taking
Mm.
Plato in larger doses. So Plato was kind of missing from European history for a long time, and that does coincide with the Dark Ages.
Um, yeah, well, that's why I wonder if it is, is it was Plato saying it's fine? Do you think he's saying 100% that it's fine to that noble lie thing is real? I mean, how does it come off to you?
So, that's the reason I bring up the family, because Plato was saying, to answer your question with the family thing, it would basically be Plato believed, or at least recommended in one instance, that it may be best if children are held in common. So you could have a wife. I forget the details of the breeding program, but basically the state was in charge of everyone's children. Now you can read that today and be absolutely terrified, and because it's so foreign to our concept of what's mine, what having a relationship is for.
You would think it'd be more foreign, but it's actually pretty integrated.
Well, we're kind of circling back in some ways. So, another parallel would kind of be vegetarianism. I think vegetarianism is the ideal and the way, and Plato thought so too. But you can see today how that is being co-opted into the Agenda 21. This.
I can still get bug proteins, right? Though.
No, that's terrible. But basically, they're using this emission narrative, and one of the obstacles in their carbon agenda is getting cows out of the picture. So
we need to attack the basic element of life itself. Well, that's been Gnostic of them, go after the carbon.
The only thing that's important with all that with Plato is to just bear in mind some of the context. Plato more or less had like an ethno-state. Why does socialism work and I'm air quoting, why does socialism work in Northern Europe but not in the tropical regions? Well, because they have an ethno-state of some of the smartest people in the world. They can get away with almost any bad system,
You're talking about like Denmark and shit, right? Not. I mean, all the other ones, it looks like they're controlled demolition. And me,
the places that leave their babies outside in the cold, and they're perfectly safe, no one kidnaps them. Those are places that maybe can pull off socialism or communism and get away with it.
Do they leave their babies in the cold?
You haven't heard about that in Norway?
No, I would think the wind would take the child, but you're telling me they don't worry about it.
That's how they harden their children. And
not even Schwarzpeter comes or something. These people are weird as hell, man.
No, they leave them out. So basically, if Plato's advancing all these ideas that seem strange, we have to remember the amount of trust. The trust-based society he was in, the honor, virtue-based society he was in.
Also, him not having any kids, right? Or did he? He didn't have no kids, did he?
I don't remember. I don't think he did.
Because he like all these guys strike me as like they're look. I mean, I don't give a shit, but they're all seem like old homos because they're just hanging out with dudes in their life. You don't hear about their so and Aristotle. When we were doing the episode about, I don't even know how we stumbled onto this on Mystery Boys, but Aristotle thought like logic was in the semen because Aristotelian biology. Oh, Juan was talking about it with the homunculus episode too. They thought like kind of like the holographic principle, basically, but that like so that way the guy was entirely in the sperm. I don't know what they thought the egg does. It's just a place. I guess they thought it was a home for the guy to grow up until it's time to come out. And it's always so gay, and it bugs me that these philosophers they leave that out because I'd say that factors way the fuck into all your ideas. Having an exposure to feminine energy, especially when you see like how those. Like bronies, maybe people think that's a natural thing, but I don't think so. I think that's a thing that's beamed into incel heads that get no feminine energy, and they're on school shooter pills, and they goon because you can't come on those fucking pills. So you got to sit there, and so then you get this candy colored shit from a bitch whose last name is Faust, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're always gay, and I noticed that ethno-state Cecil Rhodes, Mr. Fucking. They built my empire in the Kaffir's Belly roads. That motherfucker, gay. Oh, that little homunculus Nick Fuentes. Every one of these motherfuckers are gay for some reason. Why? Is it they just don't pussy's not distracting them from their amazing telling me how to raise my kid? I don't have any kids.
Well, there's something to that. I mean, you know, I've said it before. I'm not ashamed to say it. This is not my lifestyle at all. But if you come over here to Palm Beach Island, you'll see
Palm Beach Pete. No,
a
no.
very, very high percentage of the millionaire, billionaire couples swing both ways. You
Yeah,
know,
of course. There's
especially
nothing that makes you gayer than money. Let me tell you something. The more I got
yeah.
more than I thought I was gonna get at Hyenas, and I'm wearing a sea captain hat now. That's
Yeah.
how gay.
Now, you know, there is also that's one side of it. Another side of it is there's an undeniable association. People can shy away from it if they want. There's an undeniable association, undeniable link between genius,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what would this like rock star X factor basically, and gender neutrality or androgyny.
Oh yeah, no,
we'll
people get fascinated with it. I think you're right about that.
we'll just call it androgyny, right? So that can include that can include homosexual tendencies. That can include kind of that rock star Motley Crue look. You know, everything in that spectrum. There is, and also many geniuses who are simply either disinterested in the female sex, you know, or for whatever reason. People like Dali were into some weird, you know, cuck stuff.
Salvatore Dali was.
There is something, you know, just to speak crudely, and again, I'm not endorsing any of these endorsing any of these lifestyles. You know, with ceremonial magic and all this stuff, there is something to be said about blocking the natural pathways and forcing the energy into other pathways. Some people romanticize that and say it's a great thing. That's the path to enlightening, you know, is messing with the internal plumbing and the internal energies. But
yeah, it's a funny way to put it, dude. Like just dicking around with your hormones is gonna fix it. It's like cutting your bangs. It's not your bangs, bitches. It's a lot of other shit.
So, you know, somewhere in there's a kernel of truth that people are attracted, whether they like it or not, to kind of androgyny, or at least it's comfortable to spend a lot of time with on screen. You know, speaking like someone with Nick Fuentes, you know, there's this catty chattiness about the.
Well, he's not androgynous.
As I'm doing the limp wrist, you know, like.
Listen, it's not androgynous. It comes off like a fucking classic, almost like the husband from Bewitched, or like who's the guy? Oh, the cowboy from the Village People. I mean, he looks like the fucking cowboy from the Village People. I don't give a shit, by the way, about it gay. I don't care. I thought that was like, boy, I thought gay marriage was gonna be meant we could all shut the fuck up about where you stick your dick, and you know, they're like, no, now we got to talk about it even more, forever. And so in this day and age when it's the most out, there's still these motherfuckers that just hate whatever the fuck they are inside, and you just were talking about it. A lot of people's natural inclinations are to be gay as shit too. And if you think that, again, I don't give a fuck. I didn't like will myself to be like, oh, I'm into chicks. Like I didn't will that. Like, and I know specifically someone raised that you're supposed to be married in God's holy arrangement of marriage before you're you know, fucking pussy, dude. That's as bad as any gay thing in the Bible. You're the same boat as a sodomite. You fornicated. They put you to death for that in certain context.
Yes, you know, yes and no. Old Testament times, we're in new times.
It's still condemned by Paul. You know, people go, Jesus never even mentioned homosexuality. Well, look, I don't know what to tell you. Paul did. Yeah. It's in the fucking books. So, like,
I think
whatever your denomination.
I think we can all agree the best place for sex is within the bounds of marriage. You know, within.
Maybe. What if you're married to a homo? Then it ain't. So there's like, you know, the Platonic ideal. There's something, if you believe in that story, and there is something to. I'm not sure what that story represents, or maybe they just literally ate fruit off a fucking tree and that's what it is. I don't fucking know. But there's something to that where it's getting knocked, like everybody falls. What do you mean they fell? Somebody got knocked down a level in shit where now you're in this rules of this world because of that. You're born here now instead of being born somewhere else, is how I take it. And you know, I wouldn't. I hesitate to tell anybody I do. If you grew up in a bad household, or someplace where people are miserable, and they stay together because the Lord hates a divorce. That's the scripture. And but then you look back, you're like, you could have both got divorced. It would have been better, like a lot better. A lot of people live through that. So yeah, ideally, a lot of shit. I mean, you definitely need a masculine feminine balance, which is what I would assume you get from a family, right? You got a pattern in your brain. It's like your subconscious,
Yeah.
like a kid that you're raising.
Yeah, and just to be clear, since I've already done some kind of apologetics for these lifestyles that aren't my own already through this episode, I'd also like to say I don't think there's any higher form of enlightenment
Mm-mm.
and any better destination and any greater goal of life than to have a successful family. So, we can focus on the fallen part and the sin part, and, we can get offended by certain parts of the Bible, but we should always remember the fact that God wants us to be fruitful. That's one of our original commandments, to be
Yeah,
fruitful.
I bet you just without the artificial population control that's been done for many years that you're seeing the fruits of now,
Mhm.
I bet it would work just fine. I don't think there's a shortage of nothing really. It turns out a lot of stuff there's plenty of, and someone has made it a shortage.
Yeah.
And I'll bet that includes the energy of the fucking universe. I think I'm down with what Heather Lynn said, that what did you call it, the broker class, but on a universal level. There's a broker class in the cosmic sense and the earth sense, and and we shouldn't have entropy like that. There shouldn't be any heat death of the universe, but there is, because there's something like a creature lives off heat vents in the bottom of the ocean, something skimming off the top. And I'm paraphrasing it, by the way, but that's how I look at it. Is like there's these motherfuckers skimming shit off the top, cosmically. And they go, it has to be like that. And that's your thing, and you just gotta do, and all this fucking bullshit. And it's just like there ain't a shortage of diamonds or any other fucking thing. I can't control you unless I have the scarcity principle inflicted on you. You know what I mean? Unless I have that, how would I control you?
It's don't take this the wrong way, but you're blessed to have found a way to monetize your schizophrenia.
I don't have schizophrenia. Listen, schizophrenia is a collection of symptoms. Do you understand? There's nobody can tell you what it fucking is. I don't hear voices that are saying gibberish or none of that. What I do is make a lot of connections. 100% I do that, but I'm not clear on why that's wrong. And anybody I talk to, it's academic. It's like the fucking sin of all sins is to make fucking any connections. But I'm just a humble captain and astronaut. I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have.
So you grew up Jehovah's Witness, I heard.
Mm-hmm.
How was that? Did they hurt you, or like?
No, I mean, probably I was being in the right hand path of some weird occultic Rosicrucians LARP. It helped me actually quite a bit.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of the left hand path side of it, and no one I grew up with would know about it. And just like telling a Mormon they got snake people under the temple, like you're not going to know that.
Yeah.
There's inner core. All these things are a fucking LARP. All of them. That's American religion, dude, down to the T. So you brought up at the top about Tartaria, the reskin of Atlantis. That's Mormons are reskin of. They're all these little warlock cults. They form a circle inside.
Well, I think you're discounting any goodwill from these movements.
No. That's right hands. I'm saying the guy who made it.
When we look at people, I applaud your standard of perfection. I think you're absolutely.
It's platonic, some would say.
Exactly. Yeah. This righteous dissatisfaction with the world comes from a good place, but at the same time, unless we're also compelled and called to see the good in as much as we can. And
right.
Much like Jesus says, he with no sin cast their first stone. When we think of institutions, when we think of businesses, religions, they're made up of people, and I'd like to challenge anyone to find 2 good people and slap them together and create something good out of it. 3 good people, 4.
What do you call it? Baptism bootleggers? That's that system.
It's a lot harder than people think, and our criteria of good has to kind of come down a little bit in the name of communion. Now that I take that concept and I apply it as as many places as I can. And when it comes to looking at the Illuminati, Mormons, for example, I can't help but go to bat for the Mormons. I can tell you.
Yeah, I'm not saying a different thing than you. I'm not saying a different thing than you at all.
Totally.
I'm talking about. By the way, read J.R. Sweet's book and tell him he's schizophrenic, because all that MK Monarch shit happened. That's real, and the people are rattling around outside. In fact,
yeah,
what's it called? Gestalt. It's already mass produced. You already seen it mass rolled out. You've already seen it mass rolled out with how no one can remember fucking shit. People look at me like I'm crazy because I remember shit from like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
What? I'm not super smart. There's something wrong, okay? So I don't know if that's schizophrenia. This dumb fucking... In fact, even the language is a goddamn infection. You red pill, then you pill. Everything's a fucking pill with these fucks. That's how you control the population. You disseminate the fucking language and control it. All the stupid shit they distracted us with, of like, if you can say women have dicks or not for fucking 12 years.
How about this?
That's that.
Could I ask, who is they? Because
at the top of the pyramid, or I don't know. I don't know. It's above my pay grade, but I know they all think they came from. They all think they have a divine right.
The people who deserve the blame. Who are they, really?
Well, wait. I'm deserve the blame's kind of a. I mean, if you're gonna be like blamey about it, then it's gonna be everybody, because there's clearly not enough of the people at the top, the divine right of kings cunts with their special blood that's better than your blood because they inbreed. They can't do what they do without everyone else being a fucking cow. Which,
yeah,
fuck was that? Oh, thank God! I thought I was like. Thought I was gonna go schizo for a minute. I thought this was gonna break down my transmission of me laying fat red pills on this show.
Well, I agree with you. If you're saying blame everyone, I'd say
that's the point of Christianity. Is look, the point of Christianity is you're born into this shit. It's like a debt collector has something over you, okay? And just the same way when people figured out they're not allowed to harass you every day, or remember that like 60 Minutes show you the guy screaming at people and people figured out what their rights are. Involving that shit, it to me, it's like in your rights. So it's not a mystery to me. And I was taught this. I thought this is what Christians thought. The world don't belong to God. Well, you don't live in God's world at the moment. You live in the one. That's why I don't like the Gnostic shit where they go, "Oh, matter is evil." No, it's not evil. It's just fucking. You live where you live, man, and you don't have to live that way. Yeah. There's kind of debt. If you take blood oaths and all that kind of shit, you get locked in. But I lean more towards the orthodox idea where it's you put sugar in your gas tank as opposed to you're responsible for someone else's moral failing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I hear you. I agree with a lot of that. Something that's always kind of helped me is, if we could snap our fingers and get rid of all these people, the Epstein list, the whatever,
just pedos and vampires. That's fine.
Yeah, all the bad guys. All the worst of the worst.
I'll settle for just pedos. I'll settle for just the cannibal pedophiles at the top. I'll settle for just that, dude.
We snap all our fingers.
Yeah.
And they're gone.
Now all the kids I get to eat. Now I'm in charge, motherfucker.
You would agree. You would agree. The problem's going to come back at some point, right? It's not all. It's not all institutionalized. It's not all just. One person taught.
I have no idea. The promise of the thing, if you believe in it, not telling nobody what to believe, is that it will be taken care of, right? Yeah. That's what they say if you want to subscribe to Christianity, that's the goal. Is that will not that I snap my fingers. I'm not God. I'm just some guy who has to internally. This is where fucking gay alchemy and all that there's something to it, because you do have to yourself. If everybody's controlling themselves, everybody's had a principle all the time. Like, it's not okay. Here, how about this? You can't kill other people and take all this shit. How about just that? Everybody adheres to that. They're like, well, but it's complicated because we really want their shit. Like, our entire country's history of entire time I've been alive, which is psychotic, by the way. Like, you get the level of crimes committed where North Korea get propagandized into thinking this is the good guy country. And it is not by any metric that you can, I'm not clear. Even World War II, that's great that you guys cleaned up the mess you created. And I mean the ruling class, good for you. that you made a gain of fire function virus and it got out, and then you kind of contained it. Fuck you. Really, this is so. No, everybody in charge, everybody who craves that fucking power like that is this fucking scumbag. It's not. I don't think it's complicated, dude. It's just like Thomas Massey. People go, "Do you trust him?"
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't. What do you mean? Do I try? I don't fucking know him, but I just look at your actions. You know them by the fruit of their fucking works, right?
Absolutely.
Or the works of their fruits in this case.
Yeah,
America's case, not Thomas Massey.
Totally. I'm with you on judging people by their fruits. The only point I'm trying to make there is basically with the kind of making all the evil people disappear is, what's at the core of this is, I believe, as much as there's evil outside us and there are enemies outside, those people suffer from the same internal forces, internal susceptibilities, temptations, vices versus virtues. The people we can complain about or point the finger at, all they are people who've succumbed to those vices earlier than us, more
or bred into it. Or even people bred into it get out.
Yes and no, but good people can come out of bad families, and we all know bad people can come out of good families.
Well, you want to hear the best Christian book I ever heard of? Nathan Reynolds did a live reading of. There's the only audio book of this. Oh, yeah. It sounds like something I wrote for a fucking comedy thing, or like a quirky movie.
Yeah.
It's called The Gospel to All Creatures. Good news for chimeras, hybrids, Nephilim. It was like a list of, written in the 90s, a list of sci-fi things. I've never seen a more Christian thing in my entire life of like, because I want to witness to no dog, man. Anyway, I'm joking, but that to me is very Christian. That because I was a guy from a bloodline family, and I've now gotten to talk to people.
So he says.
Well, look,
that guy's pretty full of shit, if you ask me.
Why? Because he's so rich from his story and not hiding out somewhere.
No, I don't think that. I think I've met a lot of people who kind of rant about how their family's connected to every Illuminati, branch.
Right. Well, there's quite a lot of them, and many of them are crazy.
People like this come into the bookstore once a day, pretty much. And
well, I'll just hear. Look, I don't believe nothing or trust nobody, motherfucker. But I'll just hear you out. And here's what happens if you are good at hearing shit out, and especially good at making connections, which is schizo. I'm sorry, schizo. I'm talking to everybody. You can start to see the patterns of who's telling you something bullshit and who's not, and you'll have threads to pull on that lead you places. So I would put him in a hot. I've only talked to the guy one time on the phone, by the way. This is the only time I talked to him, and then Proton Mail before. And now I can't remember my Proton Mail. I don't know how to get into my fucking Proton Mail. Anyway, you can't go talk. I can't call him right now. He's fucking gone somewhere. Now. I've talked to a bunch of people that are at every level of disclosure, okay? And it's quite amazing what the respectable levels of disclosure, how much less honest they sound than these other people. But I'm not dismissing anybody. Here's the thing that I don't dismiss. If your story is kooky, like the details of your story are kooky, that you were forced because you poked a lizard man in the eye on your first day of secret space program and you had to go to a prison in the moon, and you were only rewarded with going to a brothel, okay? That's a pretty fucking out there fucking story, okay? In fact, but I have to say, just hearing that story, not to be Plato about it, but because of this guy's story, Daryl, that I've had on Mystery Boys, which is kind of like a less serious, this is a serious show. But on the Mystery Boys, his story, little weird details. I'm just a kind of guy, because I write jokes. So little weirdo details like that feet thing with the Fort Ghost, they stick in my head forever. Do you understand? And so I'm on a news show. I'm on Jimmy Dore here in Current Events. And then so I got all these things to cross check all the time, okay, to put something together. So I could actually see through quite a few fucking liars and scumbags. Now, maybe Nathan's lying, but I don't know if you're based that on, that just sounds wild, because no one could be from one of those families, or you could detect an inconsistency. That's an important thing to notice, inconsistencies. I haven't with him, and even with Daryl James, I haven't, even though his story, I don't know if he went to the fucking moon, but I don't think he's lying. Now, how the fuck is that possible? Well, I happen to know that
Mhm.
Monarch is real and MK Ultra is real. They just had fucking hearings again.
Yeah.
So that shit's real. They never stopped. And if I can just put a memory in your head, you know, if you want to debunk that shit, which Russell Dobula did on Filming for Jimmy, he doesn't feel this way now, but at the time, they had that where Repressed Memory Syndrome Foundation, which is the Temple of Satan, fucking runs that, by the way. They blamed it on one unscrupulous psychologist implanted fake memories of Satan abuse in his patient's head. So you tell me that's possible to do that, to holodeck, like something that serious? I could make you believe that if you, and so it's just this one guy, not the government. Just this one guy was probably the guy.
Yeah.
To believe that.
Your run of the mill hypnotist can implant memories, ideas.
Yo, Steve Byrne. You know Steve Byrne?
I don't think I do.
He's a comic. He had a show called Sullivan and Son or some shit. He's a comic I know for years. He's like half Chinese, half Irish. He's a guy from Chicago, I think. But he was just a mothership, dude. And I thought so. I'm looking at he does some act. I don't know. He's something where he brings people on stage. There's all lights and shit to it. I thought he was doing a hypnosis act. Okay, because I'm looking, I see like just all these people standing there, and then when I asked him about it, he goes, "What? No, and it wasn't a hypnosis act. He just has a really good voice. His voice is like really smooth. In fact, that guy always had hot chicks as long as I had known him. He's married now, but back in the day, and he there's something about him that you mentioned before, like that it thing. He's not androgynous though, but he's got the voice, like I do. He's got the voice.
Yeah. Now that sounds like a couple things. Number one, men have charisma, women do not. Charisma is the number one most valuable thing in the world.
Wait, why do women not have it? I'm not saying they don't. They have it. No, what do you mean by charisma? I guess
just biologically, it's just something they just can't.
But what is it then?
Produce
I might think it's a different thing.
So charisma, you could say, is this X factor. It's it's the ability. It's what con men have. It's what great leaders have. It doesn't have necessarily a moral.
Okay, let me ask you this:
polarity, but it's sway over others. It's natural.
Is it animal magnetism?
A little bit, yeah. But it's very much conversational.
Okay, let me just explain. Okay, at the Cellar one time, back when John Mayer was fucking Jessica Simpson, I met Jessica Simpson, and I'm telling you, dude, there was some fucking thing coming off of this broad that was so intense. Like he got in trouble because he said she was sexual napalm or some weird shit in an interview. And but I bet he was really, because he's a songwriter that writes that kind of shit. He probably is accurate. There was something about her that I don't know how to describe it, dude. It was so like, oh, you're just like not only are you, I never thought she was that hot looking at her on TV. In person, I'm like, not only are you so hot, you're like a great person. I don't know this chick. That's how I felt talking to her. And I remember it. It was such a distinct feeling. I was like, what the fuck? I've only seen her. Oh, and one time was this Mormon chick who was pretty cool in Vegas that would hang out with comics. I think she had 5 kids, and she might have been almost 50, dude. She looked like she was 30 years old, because they don't drink or smoke or do nothing. And she was genuinely just a very nice person, but like this tall, like looked like whatever the eugenics project of Mormonism was a success with this one. And now, so I'm just saying, like, is charisma different than the thing I sensed off them girls?
Let's keep talking about women. That keeps you nice and centered and calm and.
Well, it's all connected. You can't distinguish one.
I know,
but is it that? Like, what do you mean? Like, because I never heard anybody say. I'm not saying you're wrong, but
no, women don't have charisma. They have other forces at their disposal. Grace would be one that men don't really have.
Okay. You don't think I'm graceful?
Well, I'm not graceful. Men are.
You know what I look like? I was told by Sherrod, my old, like 3 kids in a long coat trying to get into an R-rated movie, got on each other's shoulders. That's how I walk. You're like, are those 3 kids hiding in adult clothes?
Women have different forces at their disposal, but charisma is definitely not one of them. And this is pretty obvious. There's very few. Just so you know, I don't know the details or the numbers on this, but there's very, very few women hypnotists, for example. It's very often men, and maybe the women who do hypnotism, it'll almost always be in a more of a therapy kind of environment. Not so much perform. Well, just examine, go over your memories up until this point. How many public female hypnotists have you seen?
Well, it's funny because one I'm gonna try to get on Misery Boys is down here. I forget her name, but she's like something the hypnotist, some black chick that's a hypnotist.
Yeah.
I'm dying to ask her about it because you know what? I don't see that. So I'm
They
very curious now.
Well, you'd concede that the vast majority of performative hypnotists are men, right?
Uh, I hope so. I should
Well,
hope so.
it is it's definitely the truth, and that kind of gets to the core of what we're talking about. Is hypnotism is separate from charisma, but they're
Okay.
very, very, very
Oh.
connected. Animal
What is
magnetism-
charisma? Wait, what is charisma? Just so I have a
Char-
definition.
Charisma is this fiery force. It is a masculine force.
It is? Oh, by
That-
definition, you're saying.
Yeah, it is one of the avenues, one of the channels of animal magnetism, mesmerism. You can be mesmerized by many things. One of them is a great storyteller. So great storytellers
Right.
have charisma, and they are not hypnotizing people. There may be elements of kind of cathartic, relaxing, and going into a different part of the brain with storytelling and conversational hypnotism. But basically, hypnotism can go two different routes. So there is the charisma side of it, where there are people who can get the benefits of hypnotism without using the darker sides or even intentionally doing it.
Mhm.
That I'd say that is one of the effects of charisma.
That's Steve, dude. That's
So-
exactly how I describe it.
So con men have charisma. Basically,
Mhm.
the guys who could sell a vibrator to a nun, the guys who could sell a I don't know, a bucket to someone who needs a trash can, right? Someone who could sell something to anybody.
Mhm.
These great salesmen, these
What just
kind
happened?
of some of these scammers, people like that.
Hey, what's
they-
happened to the thing? Is your picture weird? What happened? Now
I
it's
don't know.
little. Oh, sorry. My screen just went crazy.
That's all right.
Yeah, there's a
Uh,
bunch TV preachers I used to watch obsessively when I left Jehovah's Witnesses because I wanted to see like
Yeah.
their moves,
Yeah, so charisma is kind of a thing that's hard to pin down. I would say there's an element of non-sexual arousal. So it's basically
Mm, Yeah, right.
arousal
Interesting.
that is not necessarily romantic, but it's elevating the shared,
Yo,
energy,
you know who has that? A
energy
Jelly
of the
Roll.
room.
I'm not,
Oh,
dude. When I
really?
met Jelly Roll, yo, that guy, and
Yeah.
fucking Post Malone were just like really likable dudes. Like I can't say
I don't
nothing
know,
bad
man.
about me to him.
Maybe you should get your hormones checked or something. I'm just,
Well, I mean,
I'm
also
just-
maybe I can't say it wasn't sexual. I was just like a guy with face that. No,
Ju-
Post Malone. When I met him, he's like,
uh,
I look fucking awful, dude. The first thing he said to me, he's like, I look fucking terrible, dude. It was such a
Yeah.
mistake. That's his icebreaker. And then that other guy was fun, but he's like a fat guy that lost weight or something. So I can't
Yeah.
say nothing about their charm, and they were very likable. And I watch people want to be around that. You know what I mean?
Yep. So charisma is what storytellers have. It's part of charm. Remember, it's a big factor when it comes to romance. And I'll tell you what, a woman will choose charisma before people. This is what people don't understand. All these red pill guys don't understand. Women will choose charisma before money, before fame, before any of that, because deep down, women know charisma is the mother of all those. It is the access point to all the others. If you have charisma,
they can flip that.
you can make all the others, work.
Chicks into
eventually.
houses and fucking property, then they see a thing they think they can
Mhm.
flip. That's very valuable to that.
This is why rock stars, sports players, why they often get the same type of reaction out of women. It's often charisma. Being fit athletically gives you a fair amount of kind of natural charisma. Not always, but it kind of
if you
makes
take
up.
care of yourself, I'll bet
Yeah.
you there's even a pheromone smell that's different about you while you're,
Bingo, that too. So it can make up for some deficiencies, but charisma it's something that we're losing in the world too. Most men had charisma before. It's it kind of goes hand in hand with testosterone maybe, but You know,
Oh,
men used to be worshipped by their family. You know, get home from work and the kids run to the door and stuff like that. And uh, men
well,
used to rip on each other. That takes charisma too to kind of
yeah, right.
rip on
Well,
each
wait.
other.
So, what? Here's the thing I notice, and directly, especially like when you hear roasting, people say roast now. Do you ever hear how
Yeah,
they use it? Like, if I just start insulting you, I'm roast. But that's not what a fucking roast is, dude. Like Patrice used to say, that's why I never did a roast until Sheen roast, because
yeah.
it's fucking mean. A roast is people that love you mocking you.
Hmm.
And it's way funnier because you know what I mean. Like though, there's a built-in like warmth or something to it. And now they all say roast, and it's just bizarro. Like
Hmm.
I never met you. I'm just, hey, roast me. I don't know you,
Yeah.
motherfucker. How am I supposed to
Hi,
roast you?
hiring strangers to study like your dead family members to like roast you at the next roast.
Insane. And like, dude, shit like that's real. And I was like blown away by like how quick that happened. You know, I mean, I could insult. I guess I could insult anyone, but like, that's a thing. Some kind of camaraderie thing of. I mean, it sounds like people being atomized, like the stupid. What's his
Yeah.
name?
Well, the charisma's probably not the most interesting topic for a lot of people, but there is maybe a good segue here
I think
with
it's a
with
massive part of the whole thing, dude. Is charisma. It's a
you're right.
massive part.
Now here with hypnotism and charisma, we're kind of brushing up against this other big thing, which is NLP,
Yeah.
neuro linguistic programming.
Hmm.
And
That's a
I'll
pseudoscience, though. That's what it says in
no,
Wikipedia.
no, 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 no. That's a
Yeah.
that's a judo science.
Yeah.
Okay,
Why does it always work if it's
that's a
pseudoscience, motherfuckers?
that's a judeo science. So
Yeah.
NLP, neuro linguistic programming, is conversational hypnotism.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what newscasters learn a little bit of
Yeah.
to manipulate your emotions based off what direction they pull your attention.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it has to do with the eyes being almost like a remote control to the brain. So if I can take your attention and pull it over here, I'm literally pulling you into a different hemisphere of the brain. And so
Yeah.
if I'm giving you a news story and I'm wearing red and I'm going to the right, to the right,
Right.
to the right, to the right, and then there's this one news story that we really don't like. This guy's a bad
Mm-hmm.
guy. I'm going to take you to the left, and this is one we don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And basically different
It's
different kind of
mentalism.
different little it's mentalism. That's a big part of mentalism is reading people's faces and
Mm-hmm.
fishing the answer out of their nose twitching and stuff like that. So that's these kind of go hand in hand. But if anyone's ever heard of the Nexium cult out
Yeah.
of New York,
Oh, yo, Mystery Boys is going to talk to a guy still in it who's going to explain to us how it's all a conspiracy against that guy.
is it the guy with Tourette's?
I don't know.
I
This is a
I'd
Duncan
wager
connection, so
I'd wager it is. Uh,
I'm going. I mean, this is
but all
coming
right.
out after. Yeah, go ahead.
So neurolinguistic programming is basically conversational hypnotism. It's it's so close to hypnotism, except pretty much without the induction. So
What's the
hypnot
induction phase? I've
it,
heard that a lot, and I don't really know what it is.
yeah. So induction is basically, and I'm not a hypnotist. I'm not an
Mhm.
expert. Induction is basically the obvious like entrance into the hypnotic state. So you'll see hypnotists, they'll bring people up on stage and they'll do things like, oh, and what did you have for breakfast? Oh, and
Mhm.
and go to sleep, and they'll either touch them or
Mhm.
put their hand on them or kind of yank their arm. That is a type of induction.
How do they
And
know when to do that? You don't know, or because I know that what you're talking about, but I'm like, are
you
they?
you develop, well, listen, you're a comedian, okay? I'm sure you've been up on stage and in you almost feel the give and the take between
Mhm.
like
Oh
like
yes.
like
Oh my yes.
you've got let's say you've got 30-second, bits kind of strung together,
Mhm.
and you'll know based on that night who's in the crowd, what city you're in. I can lean into this one a little more and maybe I should reel this one back a little more, and
It's even more moment
you
to moment than that, but it is that. Yes.
yeah, so you can feel that give and take, and musicians report this as well when they're on
Mhm.
stage. There is a symbiosis, kind of going on, and So hypnotists can feel that. And just to prove this, if you've ever seen a hypnotist perform, they'll pull, let's say they'll pull 10 people up on stage. They already know that they have to get rid of maybe almost half of them because they're not suggestible enough. So
They gotta
suggestibility,
screen you. This is like pickup
yes,
artist shit, and like the
yes,
guy that Andrew Tate had, Iggy Semmelweis, named after the
yes.
doctor who invented hand washing.
Absolutely. So they screen people, and this is how commercials work. I'm
Hmm.
sure I'm sure you've been watching TV and seen a hair dryer commercial, trash can commercial, boner pill commercial,
I used to have jokes about what do they think
and
about me because of what they're
yeah,
advertising. Yeah.
and you're like, who in their right mind would see this, pick up the phone, and buy it, right? And people might say, well, that's not the point of commercials. Well, actually, that works on a huge percentage of people. They
Yeah.
hear the prompts in the commercial. Have you wondered what to do on hot summer days and don't know how to keep the house
Yeah.
cool?
I
And it's
have.
like,
Yeah.
and they're like, uh-huh, uh-huh.
I was already
That's
getting into your hypothetical. Yeah.
that
Go on.
that that is suggestibility.
Mm.
And hypnotists do know how to seek that and kind of screen for that. So they'll pull 10 people up on stage. They know they have to get rid of at least 3
Like a
cuz
jury selection.
yeah, because they're just not going to go with the program. They're and I'm not saying, the metrics for what suggestibility is it's pretty murky. Okay. It's not as simple as I've been through a lot in my life,
Hmm.
so I'm not going to fall for that. People like to think that's how it works. Like, I'm not a sucker. I'm not like that.
You
But,
can guard only the angles that you can guard, and you don't know your openings until
mhm,
they get stuck a lot of times, is my experience. So you can't get
yeah,
me with the same thing. Like, you're not going to trick me with another 9/11. I'll put
right.
it that way. Because in 20 years, I can put together kind of, maybe you didn't find the passport of the pilot in the rubble. Maybe that's a nonsense story. You
Hmm.
know, it takes me 20 years to put that together. I'm
Yeah.
not, you know.
Well, the neuro-linguistic programming is a huge part of the news media,
Hmm.
brainwashing normies who don't even have a chance of critically thinking. And
Everybody's
also,
parents you ever meet or who watch any of the news, I don't care if you like
yeah,
CNN or Newsmax or whatever. It's either way. Well, thank God it'll be pro-Israel either way. That's the important part. But
yeah,
other than that, I can't believe people older than me how, like, not uninformed, like disinformed. Like they're getting programmed with the exact opposite of reality all day long. It's actually like worse than anything you show kids now. That's inappropriate for kids. It's not appropriate for adults.
yeah. you know, uh, well, man, you want to talk about Florida at all?
Yeah, I do.
That's really my
Temecula
it's
Indians a
really
lot. I'd like
it's really
to.
my expertise. Everything else I'm just kind of
Is that right? That's great. Wait. I would like to know about the Temecula Indians, if you know, or how do you say it? Am I saying it right?
totally. Yeah, people tell me I say it wrong, but it's Temukua. So
Oh,
Temukwa or Temukua is how I say it.
Temecula. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I say it.
So is that true about them when Jekyll Island, when they made the Fed and Rockefeller had his house on the stone, or
Yep,
the it's probably not stone, right? It's probably
yep. Shell
oh
mound.
yeah.
It's a shell mound or an oyster mound. That one.
Oh, can
Um,
you clear this up for me? So I don't know if I have this detail wrong, but it's such a weird detail. So the Temucuans, when they'd sacrifice a baby, they would do it to the chief of the tribe. Is the thing I read where I'm like, not to a god, to the chief, and then they do
yeah,
that club.
yeah.
Is that like
Well,
real?
not necessarily to the chief, but in the case of uh, they had a lot of their rituals had to do with the death of a chief. So if a chief died, they would just kill maybe like 10 people right off the bat, like his servants or his wife, or because they need to go to the afterlife with him. And that's something you see around the world, similar concepts, in ancient times. But some of the child sacrifice would be done in response to things like that.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Now, the child sacrifice, it was done ultimately to gods.
Right.
They
Oh,
they
okay.
were they worshipped the sun and the moon in some ways, but some of the chiefs had some actually pretty interesting names. when the French and the Spanish first came to Florida in 1512 is when Ponce de Leon came here. He was looking for the Fountain of Youth. He was the first European to set foot in the United States as we know it today. He initially landed in the northeast coast of Florida, which is near St. Augustine, which is a little bit south of Jekyll Island. So you mentioned your friend is from Jacksonville.
My fiance is from Jacksonville. Yeah,
fiance. They lived in northeast Florida, right up against the Georgia state line. So Jekyll Island was kind of the northernmost range of their territory, and the southernmost range of their territory would have been Tampa Bay. So they went from Tampa to Jekyll Island, and they covered most of central and northeast Florida. The Timucua Indians, as I'm sure you've heard, were very tall.
How tall, too? There's some dispute, and
yeah, it is disputed. So I'll tell you what the Spanish said when they got here.
Okay.
When the Spanish got here, they said these people, the chiefs especially, the ruling class of the Timucua Indians, they were 8 feet tall.
Okay.
That's what they said, and they were being dead serious. The French, and remember the Spanish and the French hated each other. They're not gonna they're not gonna agree unless they really have to. The French came to Florida in 1562, and they met the Timucua Indians near Jacksonville and St. Augustine, and they said they were 1.5 feet taller than their tallest man. The tallest man on that expedition was about 6'3". So if you add 1.5 feet to that, we're talking close to 8 feet. So those link up pretty good. Then you have another Spanish expedition, 1529. So we're not going in order here, but the Spanish landed near Tampa Bay, and over again in 1528 or 1529, and then in 1538 and 1539, multiple waves of conquistadors landed near Tampa Bay and then went around the Gulf Coast of Florida. They all said the Indians were giants, that their bows were taller than any bow they'd seen in Europe, and their bows were so strong that their strongest men couldn't even pull them back without sitting down and putting their feet on it and kind of pulling up like that, cheating. Their arrows could go through oak trees. Their arrows could skewer a horse through and through. These people were big. They were strong. We know that. And now today, there's a lot of gaslighting that goes on. And if you've ever heard about, the Smithsonian covered up the giants, there's a lot of fiction that comes into that. But the truth of the matter is, most of the Smithsonian's work that was done to cover up giants was done in Florida.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Florida had more giant skeletons than anywhere else in the Western Hemisphere by a long shot. Hundreds and hundreds.
Is that so? Can I ask you, dude, because I've never been there, but that supposedly at the museum you can see the bones of some people there that you could. Do you know how much those measure to?
So they changed the layout of the museum over at Jekyll Island. Now I went over there, and in my Jekyll Island video, I kind of interrogate one of the museum workers a little bit.
Yeah.
She didn't have much to say, but you could tell she was given a script to use if she heard the word giant, and I'm sure they get that question every day at the Jekyll Island History Museum, because it's pretty much only famous for this dark, sinister story with the giants and the child sacrifice
and the Federal fucking Reserve.
Yeah, so I can tell you, having studied the Indians of Florida, having studied the mound culture and all that, all of Tim Bence's claims in that Jekyll Island interview where he tells his story, removing the curse from Jekyll Island, or at least removing much of it.
I forgot about that, but yeah, go ahead.
He basically, every claim he makes, I've been able to verify and validate.
Wow.
Every single one. So he didn't even know that the Spanish said all this shit about them being giants. He didn't even know all that.
That
He
really?
he showed up to the museum and pieced it all together himself, just looking in. So up until Timothy Bentz, no one had ever examined the native culture of Jekyll Island to explain why they did it there. Everyone, all these people, G. Edward Griffin, um, Eustace Mullins, all these people had written books on Jekyll Island. Many of them are banned, but no one had ever, so
Mm-hmm.
they talk about the finances, the Federal Reserve, the Warburgs, the money coming in. They talk about the Titanic maybe a little bit too. No one ever explained why Jekyll Island, why
Mm-hmm.
there, why Tim Bentz was the first guy to go to Jekyll Island himself. All these people make videos.
That's
Barely
why I
anyone ever
heard it.
went there.
That's how I heard it. Yeah.
Yep. So Tim Bentz went there and blew the lid off the whole thing by speaking to the historians who explained to him, oh yeah, not only is this like the financial ground zero of America, this is also the place where the Indians are. There's the most evidence of anywhere in North America, well, the United States, that these Indians did child sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
What else did they do that was weirdly biblical? They
They weren't
taxed.
like the others.
Yeah, so just to get a picture of what these guys looked like, not only were they tall, the Timucua Indians, at least the nobility, they did the elongated skulls
Of
too.
course.
So these guys are 8 feet tall, elongated skulls. They were tattooed head to toe. Okay, they looked like a Ripley's Believe It or Not,
Mm-hmm.
character, and they had fingernails that were literally filed like a water polo player into claws. Okay, like long diva claws that were so. These people ate so many oysters and so much spring water with so many minerals that their claws could literally pierce bone when when they would lose their sword or their hammer in battle. They would just go full bear claw on people,
And
and
that's from eating oysters and what else?
oysters and Florida spring water. So they had more. They had
Oh, it's because it's such hard water.
yeah that too. Yeah, it made their nails really strong, but it made their bones huge too. So
Interesting.
yeah, so remember, Ponce de Leon, the Europeans only bumped into Florida because they're looking for the fucking fountain of youth.
Yeah.
Like,
Stinky Florida water.
so Christopher Columbus is looking for the Garden of Eden. No one knows that.
Where are you getting that
Christopher,
from? That's very interesting. I've heard a million things about what he's really looking for, but I didn't have heard that yet.
this is a fact. So okay, forgive me for my pride here, okay? I'm probably like the number one Christopher Columbus conspiracy theorist on the internet right now.
Really?
Without even trying, all right?
Okay.
I've been studying, reading all his stuff. Everyone gets Columbus wrong.
Okay.
That's why I feel like I can say that. Everyone says he's a Templar. Everyone says he's this or that. Barely anyone's touching the fact that he was Jewish.
He's
Barely,
converso, I thought.
yes. So barely anyone's touching the fact or the theories. His motivations. Number one, his big motivation was to find a new homeland for the Jews. That was
Oh, I
his.
never heard that.
That is his grand destiny. That was what he was. That's what he promised Spain's Jews he was going to do for them.
How did
Now,
you find that?
it's in Columbus's own journals.
What?
The logs. There we have the logs of his private logs of his journeys, his voyages, most of them. We have his letters back to the king and his Jewish financiers, Luis de Santangel. Who's the other one? Don Isaac Aberbanel. These two other guys who I forget their name, but Columbus had 4 Jewish financiers who were the 4 wealthiest Jews in Spain. And 1492 was the same time that the Jews were getting kicked out. So Columbus literally saw himself as the new Moses. He wrote that. He wrote in his
That is wild, dude.
He said, I am the new Moses. God blessed my voyage the same way he blessed Moses's. And he called the new lands that he compared them to biblical lands. This is in his own writings. On his first voyage, He brought a Hebrew translator on his second because he knew he anticipated encountering lost Israelites. He thought he was going to get to some other biblical land.
Wow, that's
Uh,
very interesting, man.
Christopher Columbus, his first voyage wasn't to America. Christopher Columbus went to Ireland first. He went to Iceland. When he went to Ireland, he heard tales of Saint Brendan. Saint Brendan is the patron saint of sailors, captains, navigators, because he famously crossed from Ireland to the Americas in maybe the year, like, I don't know, 700, 600, around there,
Wait, isn't that before Ponce de Leon then?
way. Ponce de Leon was 1511. So we've only
So
been
he's not the first.
well, yes and no. So we
Oh.
know Ponce de Leon came to Florida. Saint Brendan is just a legend, okay?
Oh.
There's some evidence.
Okay.
There's some evidence, but it's like so here we'll get to the Vikings, all right? So Saint Brendan was Irish.
Mm-hmm.
He came and allegedly he made it back to Ireland. So he didn't stay in America too long. But that voyage earned him a worldwide reputation as the greatest, navigator, the patron saint of captains. Then we get Prince Madoc. Prince Madoc was more around the year 1100, and he was Welsh. His family was in a struggle, a kind of a power struggle over inheritances and stuff. And he was a pretty pious guy, kind of like St. Brendan. And so he figured, and he had heard about St. Brendan. Prince Madoc knew about St. Brendan and figured he would do something similar. He said, all right, I'm going to make this daring voyage across the Atlantic. So he set up, made some ships. Prince Madoc, I believe, had a whole fleet. St. Brendan, I think, just had one ship. I could be wrong on that. I'm going to have to check the details. But Prince Madoc goes, and allegedly he makes it to America and also sails back. Now, since they didn't really know the geography of America, they didn't know exactly where they went. But in modern times, it's traditionally said that they went to Florida because they must have used the Gulf Stream in some way. And if you take the Gulf Stream, that takes you to the Caribbean and up the Atlantic coast. So it's very likely that they rubbed up against Florida. And just so you know, the Gulf Stream brings seeds, debris from Florida to Ireland. So that's a nice warm.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Nice warm water highway. If you ever seen like Nemo, where the turtles get on the
I never saw
current.
it, but that's very
yeah. In Nemo, they basically use this warm ocean water highway to get around, and Florida has one of those too. It's called the Gulf Stream.
Right.
But all right, so Saint Brendan came to Florida. Prince Madoc, or America, let's say. Prince Madoc crossed the Atlantic too. And then or maybe roughly at the same time, maybe a little before, comes Leif Erikson. So Columbus, we know for a fact, Columbus literally studied in Ireland. He heard about St. Brendan. He met an Irishman who then, people don't know this, Columbus, his number one navigator, his number one guide, was an Irishman on his first voyage that he had met in Galway in Ireland years before. They came up with this idea, and it was years in the making, that this Irishman would come to Spain years later and help Columbus cross the Atlantic, because they had faith, they had hope, they knew others had done the same. They knew about Leif Erikson. Now, the thing that throws people off is Columbus, he did write in his own writings. He's kind of playing two sides. He needs to manipulate the Spanish crown to let him do what he wants.
Is this true? Can I ask you, maybe you know that the last thing I saw that I was like, oh wow, was that he was working for Portugal too, because they already had found India or whatever, and then he so basically they wanted Spain to go to where they went and not to the right India.
Yes.
And he was working for them doing that.
Yeah, I haven't heard so much that particular explanation, but the explanation I've heard Columbus did, in fact, work for the Portuguese government. He was actually a Portuguese sailor at one point. He was actually fighting against the Genoese. Just to tell you how much he liked Portugal, he was fighting against the Genoese in a naval battle off the coast of Portugal, and is shipwrecked in Portugal. And then he chooses to stay in Portugal for like the next 10, 15 years. So he spends his young adulthood in Portugal, coming up in a Jewish community with pretty much only Jewish friends. Columbus never spoke Italian his whole life. He never wrote it. As to your question, it's true that yeah, Portugal was kind of cashing out on India, and they didn't want Spain to get involved. The role that Columbus did play for the Portuguese that may have been against Spanish interests was I believe it's called the Treaty of Tordesillas.
Okay.
Let me check this it's basically a line that was drawn through, the Treaty of Tordesillas was a line that was drawn through the New World very early on. So 1494, they hadn't even discovered most of the New World yet, and the Pope had to settle a disagreement between Spain and Portugal, and who they asked for insight into this disagreement was Columbus. They said, Columbus, since you're the only one who's been over there, and since Spain wants this much, Portugal wants this much, they're each fighting over what, the lands that you're going to find. You tell us, where should we put the dividing line that's fair? Where's a fair dividing line for Spain and Portugal? And this is why Brazil is Portuguese and all the rest was Spanish. So that line went through Brazil, and much of Brazil on the right side, on the east side, that was given to Portugal. What was on the west was given to Spain. Now, the original proposition was going to give Portugal pretty much nothing. But Columbus pushed for that boundary to be more in favor of Portugal. So that's why Portugal got Brazil, because of Columbus's, he did them a favor when he didn't have to. But basically, Columbus, he was looking for the Garden of Eden. Not only were these guys, Prince Madoc.
Why do you think it was there?
Well, hang on. Prince Madoc, there were legends, all right? So there were legends about, there's always been these legends about paradise to the west, this utopia across the Atlantic. This goes back to Atlantis. Atlantis was the first, of these. Then Christianity comes around, and a lot of those stories get, worked through a Christian lens. But basically, Saint Brendan and Prince Madoc were looking for the Celtic otherworld. They believed in Avalon, or this.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, that's what they were looking for. They weren't just sailing out to commit suicide or whatever. They were looking for a place they believed in, they had faith in. And, even the Romans had an interesting legend. When Saturn was in a certain constellation, when Saturn was in a certain zodiac sign, only then were the Romans able to cross the Atlantic. This is a legend. We don't have any specific history of this, but there's a Roman legend that when Saturn was in a certain position, the mists and the Atlantic Ocean would be calmed, and it would be very easy for them to cross to the Americas.
That is pretty wild, dude.
And this is why there are pineapples and apparently American fruit that are endemic to the Americas that are found in Roman artwork. It's almost always
no shit. That's what I know about that. Where we go. How they? Well, no shit.
You know how they always give gods baskets full of fruit, right? Well, very often those baskets full of fruit came from the Americas, and it's like Columbus coming back with American goods.
Nice glass of OJ for you.
Yeah.
For fucking...
it's like alien technology almost from another planet. But
well, you notice how that gets like that metaphorical thing happens. Where do you remember when I'm sure people are still into this, but there's the ice wall, and then you can sail to the other. It sounds just like outer spaceship, but they just made the ocean. It's kind of anime, but it's amazing that keeps popping up. the thing you just said about Saturn though is interesting because if you've ever heard what's his name, Charles Hall, the guy talks about the tall whites, and he would talk about how things have to be aligned for them to ride the gravity or whatever to Earth. This sounds very similar of a theme.
Yeah, man. And pretty much it shouldn't surprise us that the Americas are this huge continent, north and south. They so much produce,
Right,
just for perspective, most of the world was eating mush
right, right.
until they found the Americas. I mean, potatoes,
Hmm.
tomatoes,
Yeah.
most peppers, corn,
Hmm.
you name it. Most of the things we take for granted
Tobacco.
most of the things at the grocery store come from America.
Hmm.
America feeds the world. I mean, Europe had big crop issues throughout history, until they caught up with America. Um, America takes food for granted because it's so fertile, it's so abundant. We have all these different climates.
Yeah,
Florida,
no context of not knowing about a place called America and then suddenly finding out there's a new world that just has
yeah,
pineapples in it.
yeah, better food, better spices. So basically, Columbus was interested in these legends. This was his life's mission. He understood this. He searched through these archives to find as close as personal information about these voyages as he could. He learned about Brendan, Maddock, Erickson. There were some others. There was this legend of Antillia. So we call the Caribbean the Caribbean. Well,
Mhm.
Columbus named the Caribbean, another name for the Caribbean. It's somewhat synonymous, not exactly, is the Antilles.
Right.
The Antillean Islands or the Antilles is basically, um, it's like the it's most of the Caribbean without some of the islands. So when you have,
I used to
we'll
play
just
Sid Meier's Pirates, and it was a big focal point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, the Antilles are it's like the Atlantis of Spain. So the Greeks had their Atlantis.
Right.
The Iber,
Uh-huh.
the Iberian Peninsula, their version of Atlantis or Avalon was called the Antilles. So when Columbus comes over here, and another name for these legendary islands were the Fortunate Isles or
Right. I
the
haven't
the
heard that in a while.
The Hesperides, the islands of the
Right.
Hesperides, but also
Hmm.
the islands of the Atlantides. So
Oh,
all these legends were describing the same place. It was a distant memory, perhaps an embellished or romanticized memory of the Americas.
right.
And each culture had their spin-off version of the story, the memory, and they all had this kernel of truth that Columbus was looking for.
Right.
Columbus
Right. Interesting.
Columbus pieced all the stories together. Yes, he was the
What a
first to do that.
schizo.
And then he had a friend named Abraham Zacuto, who was the world's greatest astronomer, a Jewish guy. I think he was Portuguese. Abraham Zacuto created the astrolabes and the very
Really?
sophisticated. He created the first navigational instruments that Columbus needed to cross the Atlantic, and he invented them just in the nick of time. And he donated some of them for free to Columbus.
Mm.
What was this all for? Just so that they could go play around in the ocean and
Well, you know what else is going on because Spain's expelling all the Jews. The sabotage Zevi's going on. So you're
yeah,
going two
yep,
directions, right? Yeah.
yep. That comes on a little bit later. Um, but basically, not only was Columbus secretly Jewish, he was extremely what we by today's standards we could call him a Zionist.
That's
Now,
why am I only just now? I found out the converso thing kind of
yeah.
recently, but like
Well,
just like how they teach it is so, let's say,
well,
platonic.
yeah. Here, here's the thing, Kurt. Remember, Columbus is like a hot potato. Okay.
Hmm.
Back then, it's true the Jews relied on him and they were thankful for him. But as history's kind of come down to us, people don't look at Columbus the way they did before.
No, yeah, I noticed.
He's
Yeah.
not a hero. People, and I'm going to tell you, most of what people think about Columbus is wrong. he was not as vicious or cruel as people
I knew
think.
that. I actually knew that, and I got it
Yeah,
surprisingly from some guy who was usually left wing talking about it. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know
yeah.
that." Yeah,
No, but
he's not as bad as the IDF. We give him that.
he's nowhere near as bad. Just so you know, Columbus had European people, his own crew, put to death for abusing
Right.
natives.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people
His
don't know that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Columbus's goal was to baptize all of them and make them Spanish citizens because that's what Queen Isabella ordered him to do.
Right.
Um, her Queen Isabella's vision was to baptize all of them and make them Spanish citizens, meaning
Right.
they have greater or equal rights to your average
Right.
Spanish
Mm-hmm.
citizen. What people also don't understand, which really offends a lot of people, is the plantation culture or the labor culture. The feudal kind of like a feudal system.
Mm-hmm.
People call that slavery in America when Columbus shows up, but everyone forgets because no one wants to read about history. God forbid. People forget. That's how most Spanish citizens were living. That's how
Mm-hmm.
most Spanish subjects were in a type of feudal labor system where.
Yeah.
So when Columbus gets over to the Americas with the the horses, the armor, the swords, that's what set apart the nobility from the
Mm-hmm.
from the labor class in Spain. You called nobility literally went hand in hand with having a horse and a sword. It was called a caballero,
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
to be a knight. The upper class were knights,
Right.
and their basic duty, their honorable duty was, yeah, hey, I have a horse, I have a sword. I was trained in combat. I'm like 6'4". You guys are like 5'4".
Mm-hmm.
You guys work in the fields. You guys hang out in the shade. You don't. And whenever any threat comes, I'm gonna go fight it. Us, the knights, we're gonna go fight it. That's what got them by in Europe. So when they come to the Caribbean, that's what they want to implement. And there's this added racial dimension to the whole thing that they didn't have in Spain. So in Spain, it was Spaniards telling Spaniards what to do. When they got to the Caribbean, people discount the fact that a lot of it was just what they were used to. They
Right.
thought they come to this land, they're going to offer a service to the Indians, they're going to fight their enemies for them, and they'll work for them. Well, the Indians didn't really want to do that. They didn't have the same goals, or they didn't share any of the.
It sounds familiar, like it's irrelevant to this very day in
Yeah.
many ways.
So,
Yeah, no shit.
Basically Columbus was, is it true that he punished some Indians? Yeah, he did. Did he punish the Europeans? Yeah, he did. So people are really, it's misplaced. That kind of anger, that kind of blame game is really misplaced on Columbus. He's just.
Yeah, clearly, if he's looking for the Garden of Eden and he's a
Yeah.
Jewish guy, I mean, I can see how that might be obscured,
But
depending on
also,
like all the other nonsense lies that have been piled up for you. Because for
Yeah.
he's the Italians' main guy for some reason. At some point in history, like they're like, we love him. Remember that controversy?
right.
Sopranos talked about it.
Exactly. That comes back to him being a hot potato. So
Mhm.
the Italians have been claiming him for God knows how long because they're not really in tune or in touch with the Native American thing. They don't give a shit at all. Whether it was good, bad. They don't even. The topic doesn't even come up for them. But whereas the Jews in America, who are very much interconnected with the education system and
Right.
public image and kind of PR, right? They understand, they have the savvy, to understand claiming Columbus at this point is not a good look.
Yeah, well, it
So
depends what
he's
Jew you are. My friend
he,
Big J don't know none of this, but the fucking class of like the Leo Frank class, I like to call him, like that scumbag the ADL is based on. That's that's a lot of like Hellenized kind of. I mean, oh, is this good for us? So there's a quote
Yeah.
about that.
Well, so Columbus, he well, whatever. Just to bring it back to Columbus, basically, Columbus, he knew that there was some paradise across the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
The Celtic otherworld was pretty interesting. They called it the land of apples. That's what Avalon means, land of
It
apples.
means the land of apples.
Correct. Now, back then, apple was a generic name for most fruit. It wasn't just the apple. The
I
modern
didn't know
apple,
that,
yes,
because
that's
that's
true.
like some you have to make a modern apple, some crazy science,
Not exactly. I mean, they come from Kazakhstan, so they came into Europe a little later. But originally, apple meant any fruit that's larger than a berry. So,
No, I know. I never heard that until you said it now. That's
yeah.
very interesting.
Well, the modern apple, the conventional apple, comes from Kazakhstan, and that's a whole family of many
Right.
apples. But
Hmm.
historically, in Europe, the word apple, which is across many languages, German, Apfel, all these different European languages, apple's more or less the same. It's one of the old shared words in Europe. And Avalon has that same root. So Ava, Apfa,
Hmm.
Appa. So you'll notice,
So then it makes
yeah,
sense how the Garden of Eden thing would be apple, and then it
exactly.
wouldn't. Right. Wow, that's very
Exactly.
interesting, dude.
So it's basically a garden with fruit, a snake, pleasant to the sight. That's what people say. All the plants were pleasant to the sight. It was a perfect place where you didn't need. So that there's some
Maybe a
criteria.
plumed serpent even around.
If we're taking it literally, there is some explicit criteria for what the Garden of Eden must have.
Hmm.
We can deduce it was subtropical or tropical because they don't need fire, they don't need
Hmm.
clothing. Um,
Oh, I never even thought of it from that angle, dude. That's interesting, right? Oh,
no,
because if you're back then, you're going to an island where they don't care how naked they are.
yeah.
That must
Well,
be entirely through that. Yeah.
yeah, and just so you know, Columbus's uh, initial reception by the Native Americans was actually the basis for the common law that America was founded upon. Did you know that? So,
No. Oh well. Explain.
there's this concept of the noble savage. So
Right.
people thought that virtue before Columbus landed in the Americas, because they had only encountered Africans and Indians up until then, they were basically like, all right, virtue is a uniquely European cul-
Hmm.
culture, or like a gene. They thought that. They were convinced of that.
Yeah.
They
It's like
didn't
so
think
peaceful all the time.
they didn't think Africans and Indians had access to the same, you know, society, virtue, concepts, philosophies. And yeah, call that racist, call it whatever. But when they came to the Americas, they were confronted with a new type of human,
Hmm.
one who actually impressed them with their selflessness, their
Hmm.
generosity. And these people had no schooling, no training. So the point is, in Africa, they had institutions, they had universities. As much as we
Right.
as much as we can make fun of Africa, they had thousands of years of learning and all this stuff. And in India, same thing. I mean, these people had an opportunity to make it to a very high society, and they didn't always use those opportunities to the best. But in America, and yeah, the Maya and the Aztec, they had a lot going on too. But let's just talk about the Caribbeans, the
People
Southeast.
mix them all together in their heads, so they don't
Yeah,
really. It's the same as Africa being a continent, and everybody thinks of it as Africa, and not like it includes
yeah.
Egypt or something. You know.
So when Columbus got here, exactly like you said, Kurt, the nudity meant something to them.
Right.
They were basically like, these people are almost choosing not to wear clothes, or the conditions are so advantageous, so harmonious to the human organism that you can go about without clothing. They don't really
Hmm.
they don't really need much technology, because there's the
Right.
there's the fish. That you got everything you need. And in spite of that simplicity, dare we say barbarity, they still had a great code of right and wrong. Now
Right.
they still had some issues, okay? They still, certain tribes did sacrifice and stuff like that.
But in
But
the context of their look,
yeah,
if you're a guy back then looking at it, I know exactly what. Probably like a Mormon
yeah,
missionary seeing it, like so. Oh, look at that! Like,
they
yeah,
were
I know how that is, man. To see everything
yeah,
through that lens, you know.
they were basically at a loss to explain how these people had learned goodness, and it taught them something that stuck with the the culture in America right up until the Declaration of Independence and Constitution, where basically there's this concept of the noble savage, where God must have had some relationship with this continent
Mhm.
on some level, whether it's purely internal. They used the Native Americans as proof that goodness comes from within. So kind of like we were talking about before with, the blame game, who's really in charge of the world. To me, the vices are the real families that rule the world. The
So they're
real
practically sentient at this point.
the real Illuminati bloodlines are not 13 families. They're the 7 deadly sins. They're the 7 vices that we
Well,
can
I
all.
thought all sin was deadly, and that 7 deadly sins is some papist shit that came
It
later. That's what I
is.
thought.
Well, yes and no. I'll tell you, being like an astrologer and being into mysticism and stuff, those seven vices and virtues go a bit deeper than just a church teaching. They are planetary in their origin.
Oh, that's interesting. Wait, so you said you're an astrologer. You know about that stuff, right? Okay.
Mhm.
So, okay, I got to pee, but I actually want to ask you a bunch about that because I would have never until very recently. There's something going on with that, and I understand there's like a 13th sign that you don't generally see.
No, that's fake news. Totally fake
Really?
news. Total
All right, wait,
psyop.
let me pee. I want to know about that. Hold on one second.
Okay. No.
The whole thing is, I don't believe in any of this shit of making like a false idol out of nobody. I hate, especially when we cover this shit on Jimmy's show, because the Charlie Kirk thing, which I'm at the moment I agree with what Heather Lynn was saying. I think that was some kind of kosher slaughter, but
Definitely. I mean, it's
the Nefesh comes out and all that blood because I didn't want to see it.
dude.
And I
You want to talk about 7/11 and 9/11 a little bit?
Sure, if you guys,
What direction you want to take it? Florida's what I have the most to kind of contribute about.
Do you have any idea? Here's something Florida related. Okay.
Yeah.
The guy so there's the face eating guy that they famously said was bath salts and wasn't. Some cop said at the interview, and the guy actually just had marijuana in his system and apparently no violent criminal history, and it was out of nowhere. And my girlfriend was telling me about and she found the video where the guy is biting it. He's eating his own arm, and someone's filming him. Well, and I was like, what the fuck is going? And I mean, I suspect there's something else going on there, but I wouldn't have a clue as to what.
Yeah. So what is this freakish influence in Florida?
Is there a military base nearby? Is my first question all the time,
Yeah. Well, if Florida is the Garden of Eden, there's also an angel with a flaming sword defending the way back to the tree of life.
Wouldn't Columbus know that? That's the thing that's so weird. Is think it's the Garden of Eden. They get there and the noble savage thing is going on, but like I thought, no one can go back in the Garden of Eden because there's a flaming sword.
That's not necessarily true. It's a misconception. It's a misconception. It's kind of like a lion and the lamb thing. It's really wolf and the lamb.
You're right.
It's wolf and lamb, and the lion will eat straw. So it's wolf, lamb, lion. People just mistake it and they blame the Mandela effect. The thing with the flaming the thing with the flaming sword is basically the angel. Number one, it's not an angel. It's a cherubim. So cherubims, it's plural. It's double plural. Cherubim is plural, and then the S at the end makes it extra plural. So what this actually is the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. That is called the fixed cross in the zodiac. So this is Leo, or going in order, it's Taurus, the bull, Leo, the lion, Scorpio, the eagle, and Aquarius, the man, or the water bearer. So when we hear of angel today, that's actually only the last of the 4 cherubims. That's the humanoid angel. The other ones are kind of confusing and maybe even a little too pagan for most people. But the reality is the biblical definition of what cherubims are, they are the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac.
Okay.
So what I see there's a couple explanations. There weren't exactly seasons as we have them today back then. We can deduce that, but there's also some clear scripture that that points to that. Basically, Adam and Eve just plucked fruit all day, and
Mhm.
that was their work, right? When God kicks them out of the Garden of Eden, they have to work for their food. Now they have to work for their food. They have to farm and plant, and
Right.
it's not just leisurely picking a mango off the tree and simple as that. So what I see there is the seasons almost get like turned on for the first time. So maybe there was probably some movements in the heavens. Earlier in Genesis 1, God creates the heavens and the stars and says, "Let them be for signs and for seasons." So
Mhm.
God makes the zodiac signs. That's number one, not the devil, not the false
Right.
angels. Um, God makes the signs, and it seems they're first named or kind of pointed at, hinted at with that cherubims, the mention of the cherubims, because later on we see cherubims have four faces: the bull, the lion, the eagle, and the man. And that's throughout the Bible.
Mhm.
Now, basically, cherubims, whatever that is, we already know based off that description. This is not one angel holding a sword, just like, all right, and no one gets past me.
Mhm.
That's not what's going on here. The flaming sword is turning every way,
Yeah,
constant.
that's Tracy Twyman has a whole thing very interesting
Yeah,
about a thing that is from every angle.
yeah.
It's like
So
a geometry issue.
it's constantly spinning. Um, Another thing is, it's not defending the Garden of Eden. It's just defending the Tree of Life. So that sword is to protect the way of the
Oh,
Tree of Life.
interesting. So that's okay. I get it. Okay.
It's protecting the way of the Tree of Life.
Mhm.
It's not like a fence around the garden. It's basically a programming into the Tree of Life that prevents us from abusing it in
Mhm.
the same way as before. At least not in the garden. So we can abuse the Tree of Life in other ways, maybe. But
So do you say a tree of life? And I'm not sure about it, but is it like some kind of sexual thing, or is it literally something with a tree, or is it like 1,005 dimensions? As I kind of be like a tree, right? And, go
yeah.
through one direction in time.
So you'll have to forgive me because this is one of the greatest mysteries of all time.
Mhm.
No matter what I say, it's not going to scrape the surface.
Mhm.
But basically, there's three obvious elements to the whole tree of life and tree of knowledge thing. Tree of life, we have words like family tree. We have words like
Mhm.
ancestry, right?
Yep.
Tree words. Um, there's also fruit. So fruit has to do with trees, and these tree of life and tree of knowledge have fruit. But the first biblical definition of fruit is a sexual definition.
Mhm.
It's reproduction.
Right.
So there's this obvious correlation between fruit representing sexuality and reproduction. The tree of life. One way to interpret this would be, and again, don't grill me on this. There's lots of other explanations. The tree of life is proper sexual conduct.
Okay.
That which results in a tree. Your family tree, the tree of life.
So they hadn't partaken of that yet, though, in the thing, right?
We don't. It's hard to say.
Oh, okay.
It's a very mystical question. Some people say they didn't even have physical bodies. But
With like
yeah,
Steiner people,
yeah. People said yet. Not yet. But
right?
now, as far as the sexuality, the tree of life, and it kind of circles back to what we were talking about earlier with the Palm Beach sexuality stuff. The tree of life is all productive fruits,
Mhm.
all the sex that results in conception, a happy family. That's the proper avenue for
Mhm.
the tree of knowledge of good and evil is, I would wager, all types of sexuality that do not result in children.
I was going
Uh,
to say transhumanism. That's
so,
interesting.
so you could say fornicative sex, spilling the seed is something the Bible doesn't like. Pulling out, seems to be something the Bible isn't a big fan of.
Well, I thought that was because Onan was cheating his, his widow, the widow of his brother, by doing that. He wanted to keep the shit for himself, the inheritance, and
Mhm.
so it wasn't pulling out in and of itself. Although I know that has been put out there quite a bit.
Yeah, but you could certainly make the argument that the Bible does not endorse pulling out. And so there's coitus interruptus.
Mm,
There is other types of sex. I don't want to be lewd or crude here, but uh, other types of sex exist that do not result in having kids. And ever since then, ever since the beginning of time, they have been associated with ceremonial magic,
right.
Gnosticism,
Yeah.
cults,
Rocket science.
secret information. So I mean, it's kind of obvious. The
It's like
two the
sex
two
magic. Yeah.
paths, yeah, the two paths here. It's people talk about stealing from God. Have you ever heard of this? Stealing from God is what many of these secret societies talk about. Their perspective on no nutting is basically stealing from God. God gives you this
Right.
extremely potent sexual force to create millions of people from one person. I can create millions of people,
Mm.
millions of towns, cities, worlds, technologies, and basically, fuck. What was I saying? I forgot what I was saying.
Non-procreative sex. Hold on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, there's all these techniques. I heard you and Juan. I saw the show you did with Juan. That was pretty funny. Talking about ejaculation.
Is that what it's
Sweet.
called? Is it called that?
That's something. Go fuck yourself. Go.
If I just hold it in,
Go
I
go
get
go
yeah.
take a load off.
Yeah, I always
Base.
joke that I waste my cum wishes. I don't. I just wish for more wishes. I don't get like a rocket ship or whatever.
Well, hey, there's something to that too. Aleister Crowley is all about the wishing with your orgasm and stuff. And
It's
um,
just like to me, that's like stealing a thing God gives you for free. Like
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. There's all these workarounds and these copes. Not to throw someone else under the bus, but Robert Sepper and people like that.
he looks like
Rob,
he's held his load in for the past 30 years.
yeah,
He
he's
walks
a,
like it,
he,
and he's got the
he's a
face. I will have him on though.
he's a bit stiff, don't you think?
Well, he's in that
Basically,
guy's cult from South America or something. I
you know,
forget
I,
his name.
well, I joke about a joke I like to tell about Robert Sepper is no matter what his video is about, you start it and it's like Bulgaria is a country in Eastern Europe with great cuisine and then no
That
matter what
having been
no
said,
no matter what the video is about, by the end of the video it'll be by keeping the vital fluids inside.
you gotta
We
know
can.
the moral of this
It's
whole
like
thing.
it's like it's like no matter where the video's about, it's like the Netherlands are a country. And end of the video,
Yep.
the semen must not be released unless
Dude,
like
I've never got a message so clear in my life from one man, from him to hold it in.
I know. It's like at some point there kind of is a little perversion in there with if every single thing circles back to no nutting and that being the ultimate key of enlightenment,
This is the
just
thing I don't get is this is why I don't the idea that like you're gonna well, I'm being a little bit glib here, but the thing of Gnosticism of like you really think that's the salvation is knowing the secret password to the club. Is that really?
yeah.
Oh, I knew the code to get in. You didn't. I just seems so
Dude,
stupid to me.
yeah. And having, I've dabbled and I've gotten into here at the bookstore we have like every religion, a shelf on every religion, every type of mysticism and secret society, and having dipped my toes into much of it and explored, gone pretty far down some rabbit holes. I've explored ceremonial magic,
Mhm.
in some areas, and I can tell you, when it's all said and done, when you finally do get a grasp of it, I'm just shocked.
And how it's dick and pussy all the goddamn time. I am.
Well, pretty much, minus the pussy part usually. But basically, I'm shocked that it something jumped out at me eventually, which was it's all just cheat codes.
Yeah, right.
It's
Yeah.
just God created the stage with the lights and the set
Mhm.
perfectly to be enjoyed from the audience and the stage. Yes, you can get up and go look behind the curtain. Yes, you
Mhm.
can go back behind the show and mess with all the mechanisms and stuff. But is that really what it's all about? No. It's not to be hallmarky, but it's essentially the goal of life is to do what Jesus said, which is to love God with all your heart and soul, and
Hmm.
to treat others as you'd like to be treated. That is the law. That's the original law.
Yeah, right.
That transcends and that can kind of negates or voids the rest of the commandments because it completes the grand scheme of all of them.
I would say, look, the way you're describing the stage and all that, because just from working in showbiz, like a stage play is like a lie. I mean, I don't think anything from God's going to be a lie now,
Yeah,
and that's the showmanship and all that fucking shit. And but I would a analogy would be like, oh, I really like this show. I mean, I know it's a show, right? I really like it. I want to take it away from the original creator and make it my own IP by altering it, which is what
right.
you see repeated on every single thing they ruined that anybody ever liked. And I mean, even I'm grateful they did it because like it's time for everybody to get over fucking Star Wars. Okay, so.
Hmm.
Great. I learned Kabbalah through it. I appreciate it. But
Yeah, yeah. Well,
like
Yoda, real quick, just so you
yeah,
know, Yoda is openly, it's a fact. Yoda
uh-huh.
is a cross between yoga and
Mhm.
Yehuda. So it's
He's a
Jewish
yogi.
Jewish
That's why he has
Buddhism.
such a great
Yeah,
body.
it's Jewish Hinduism is essentially what
Yeah.
Star Wars
Uh-huh.
is. You
Yeah,
know,
we all get theosophy at the end of the day. It's gonna be
Jedi is like Jati, like the light. Jyotish means like a type of Hindu astrology.
Mhm.
Vader is Vedic, the Vedas. You know,
He was
um,
ripping off not just Joseph, they always talk about Joseph Campbell, but also he was doing a
yeah,
lot of Carlos Castaneda and that shit too.
yep. You know, he pulled from many sources. But all right, so what else
Well,
do you want to
Campbell
talk
was in
about?
on building a myth. The quest to destroy Christianity has been, by the way,
Yeah,
a Western fucking quest for the ruling class for quite some time, because it's really not compatible with empire the way they like to have empire. That's why it had to be co-opted almost immediately into some kind of political thing and fucking,
yeah,
So but yeah, there's something where they want to fucking. There's a guy from Cambrian Genomics in 2014. He killed himself, the tech guy, but this is still their quest. Even if they make it like he's a lone guy, he goes, "We're going to take everything natural and make it artificial." He's given
hmm
this exciting talk about we're going to make everything natural artificial, and nobody's like, "Why would you do that?" Well, because then we own it.
yeah,
Then it's ours. It's not God's own. But now we bought the IP from you, so now we get it.
hmm yeah. That
I
makes
guess that's
sense.
who the they is, the fucking eugenicists of the world.
Well, and you know, kind of going back to the Plato thing is like the greatest ideals and like utopian uh, ideas are often very offensive and like alarming to people who like liberty, you know, and stuff. Um,
But not coming from, look, if you're into Christianity, it's not alarming hearing it from the Bible, right? But it is
yeah,
alarming hearing it from some fucking guy who's like,
yeah,
God said I get to tell you this because I'm inbred. Okay. That's the part
yeah.
that's, I think, the hiccup. That's why people unload about religion, to constrain religio.
Well, maybe. You know, religion has a couple cool words in it. I'm into words. You know,
What's the
Adam.
other word in it? I'm interested in that. What is the other word in
Well, you know, there's a couple words religion goes back to, but relegate is one.
it? Mm-hmm.
Ligate, you know the word ligature, right?
Right. Yeah, to
Religion,
bind. Yeah, right.
exactly. So religion, you could say, oh, it's to bind people, to keep them in bondage. Maybe,
It's
but it's
more,
also
it could be that or not. Yes.
what ties us together. Family
Right.
ties are good
Mm-hmm.
things, you know, they're not always bad things. And religion is what ties us
Right.
together.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be, you know, my greatest ideal, you know, opinion on religion is that it should be congregation based, which is what Jesus originally had in mind.
Right.
It's what the purest forms of Christianity have always been, is neighborhood places to help the neighborhood, you know,
Mm-hmm.
places
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
to keep communal accountability. You know, this guy's wife's cheating on him. Well, she's not
Mm-hmm.
going to, if you don't go to church and there's not a big opportunity to call her out, she's going to go on doing it forever. You know, it's stuff like that. Is there's these checks and balances. There's this nice sunlight to keep things, sunlight, transparency.
It should be.
That's how the church should be, exactly. Now,
Well, Jehovah's, I
people,
can say for them, they weren't trying to get your money. They just wanted the best years of your life devoted to it. And also, when it came down to it, they did the same crime as the bad Catholics that we look down on did. They
yeah.
they didn't go to the cops. They wanted to make the organization not look bad by covering it up. That's unacceptable to me. Like on a, like you can't tell me you're
Yeah.
gonna give me the true word of God and then pull some shit that I know better than. You just can't do
So,
that.
well, speaking, well, you want to
Wait,
talk
what
about
religion are you?
I'm
Because I know
Christian.
Christianity, but like what,
Yeah.
which
Well,
one?
at this point, I can't really affiliate with any of them because I'm
Yeah,
kind of
right.
into all this mystical stuff. And
Hmm.
but when I do go to church, I go to the Episcopal Church in Palm Beach. It's actually Donald Trump's church too.
It's like an
Bethesda.
Anglican of America's Episcopalian,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mhm.
And hey, dude, I'm not gonna go to bat for what the Episcopals are doing at the highest levels. It's disgusting. They're like more liberal than anyone. But I like the Episcopals because they don't demand much from you. It's
Right.
very much open to the community. If you go to an Orthodox church, they want to know your name like the
Hmm.
first or second time you get
Interesting.
there.
I've never been.
They want to know who you are. They need to know they are not. And I know there are exceptions. Orthodox is one of the least open door churches.
Really?
Uh, yeah, they really want your kids to be in. They don't want unbaptized kids running around. They want your marriage to be done through the church, and Catholicism's like that too. And
Right.
so they can be very strict. And I'm not saying that's the only thing that puts me off, but
No, I know what you mean.
I like being able to go when I want and call me a diva, whatever. But I don't need some. I don't need to kiss some father's ring. They do that
Does it not? Now,
in
my
Orthodox church. They do that. You have to kiss the ring sometimes in
yeah.
certain churches.
No, I did not know that
Oh, you
actually.
didn't know about
No.
that? Yeah,
Isn't that
some
the part where Jesus said, "Kiss my
some
feet"?
oh yeah. So Jesus says, "Call no man father,"
Yeah, I was
and
gonna bring that
and
up.
and they'll go through every workaround that they can. They'll bring out every trick and loophole in the book. The Russian Orthodox, I'll put the Greek Orthodox to the side for a sec because
Hmm.
I think they do it the best of all the Orthodox branches. The Russian Orthodox are some of the worst. They are pretty much diet rabbis at this point. The legalism,
Yeah, right.
the strict social conduct, stuff like that. But basically, it's not for me. I like Christianity. I like Jesus. And the deeper I got into Hinduism, I found Jesus at the end.
Hmm.
The deeper I got into Buddhism,
Hmm.
I found Jesus at the end. As little as I've dabbled with Islam, I see Jesus being exalted,
Right.
and that all spoke to me. And it's kind of like pattern recognition.
Hmm.
If the Buddhists are saying, yeah, Jesus is as good as what we have, if not better, because he's newer and he is the Buddha, and I don't believe that, but if they're willing to say that, then the Hindus are going to say, yeah, we're the oldest religion in the world, and Jesus is one of our guys too. Jesus was also the Messiah of much of Hinduism. They call him the Avatar, one of the avatars.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, I've heard this before. Yeah.
there's the Kalki Avatar. There's some other avatars, but Jesus was one of these manifestations, these incarnations, and they're not shy about that. They have Jesus statues in many, many, many
Hmm.
Hindu temples. Now, I don't like Hinduism. Just if I had to pick yes or no, I'm going to say no.
They
But
have him
basic,
right next to a Shiva Linga, Shiva cock.
exactly, they're like, yeah, we love Jesus. Now let's go douse him in coconut milk and call him God.
Yeah.
Like they do that. But so yeah, I don't endorse that. But
Hmm.
then you go, and some of my favorite gurus. So Neem Karoli Baba, that's the guy who enlightened Ram Dass. Here, you're a comedian, right?
Yeah. So I was
You're
about to bring up Ram Dass because I'm curious your opinion on Ram Dass.
yeah.
What you think of him?
So Ram Dass had a big piece of the puzzle. He was an interesting guy. Some of his lectures are great, but a lot of it's kind of empty, like airheaded hippie bullshit. Like
Hmm.
be here now was his whole thing, right? Like,
I was
all
going to do that anyway, Ram Dass. What do I need you for?
exactly.
Live,
Yeah,
love,
that's
laugh. Okay.
exactly. So
Let me get a
that's
tattoo so I remember to do the eat, sleep, and breathe. Okay.
well, Ram Dass. He was Jewish. His
Uh-huh.
upbringing. He was.
Right.
I don't know if he was Harvard educated, but he worked
Yeah.
for
Harvard.
Harvard.
Him and Leary were pals, and
Yeah.
the other
So
guy. Yeah.
he worked with Harvard. Maybe even was educated. I forget, but he was almost like atheistic in some ways. His mother died. He was depressed. He went over to India to go soul searching.
Right.
One of the first people to ever do that. He was also secretly gay.
Yeah.
So
Right. I remember this about him. Yeah.
yeah. Now basically he goes, he meets and he hears about this wise guru. And today we know about there's all these, it's like run of the mill, like all these Hindu gurus and Indian gurus.
Hmm.
Back then it wasn't like that. Even in the 60s, it wasn't very common to go soul searching in India. The Steinerians and the Theosophists kind of
Hmm.
popularized it a little bit, but most people in the West, if you were kind of lost today, it's almost like taken for granted. Like, oh, you feel lost, you're turned off
Hmm.
with things. Well, clearly, you should just explore some Buddhism and Hinduism, and that'll like
It's
give you
a New World Order tool to get
yeah,
those things wrong. They get them
it'll
very wrong, and it's a franchise system here.
yeah,
And
it'll
so
give
that's why, yeah.
it'll give you an outlet from your Western responsibilities and stuff. So,
Hmm.
but that wasn't always the case. So Ram Dass was kind of a pioneer when he's going over there. And back then, his name was Richard Alpert. Um,
Right.
he basically hears about this guru, goes and finds him, tracks him down, has to go through all these jungles or whatever, and a whole ordeal to find him. Finally finds him and sees a line of people, out the door waiting in line to meet this guru, and the guru's barely paying any attention to them. He's like being an asshole to most of them.
Hmm.
He won't even see half the people who are there to beg blessings and stuff from him.
Hmm.
And he's kind of a lazy guy. He just sits wrapped in a blanket all day. He eats fried food all day. He has a whole temple to himself, and he doesn't even show up to the morning, ceremonies that
Hmm.
he's
It's
supposed
like
to be
Tony
off.
Robbins. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like supposed to be the whole guy. He's supposed to be officiating stuff, and he's not even present much of the time. He just sits and stares off into the distance, murmurs to himself. Um, and Ram Dass, or Richard Dick, was pretty turned off by it. He's like,
Hmm.
this guy's full of himself. Like, why am I here? This is nonsense. He's basically on his way to walk away, and the guru, and I'm paraphrasing here. I'm fast forwarding. He snaps his fingers and basically calls his attention to Richard and says, "You think you're better than this? You think you know what's going on? You think you have the full picture? You think you know what these people deserve and don't deserve? You think I'm egotistical?" And he more or less says to him, "You don't know anything. Your reaction is one of your problems," and says, "I know where you've been. I know your whole life." Or he proves to him, "I know you
Hmm.
were. I last night I know you were at the waterfall, thinking about your mother, who died. This is how she died. He knows everything about him." And Ram Dass realizes this. This guy knows everything about me, and this guy was the real deal. This guru, and we don't have many of them today. Probably none. This guy was one of the last real saints of India. Neem Karoli Baba, one of his names, also called the Maharaji. Um, Basically, Ram Dass becomes convinced this guy's the real deal. He knows everything about me, and he still loves me. So this guy, he emanated this selfless
Hmm.
love for all things, not to be hallmarky, but that Jesus kind of quality. He had infinite compassion, and that's what he mainly offered to people. That's what was so appealing about him. That's what people would
Hmm.
come hundreds of miles just to see him for. And he also tended to the lame and the rejected, the handicapped, the retarded, the lowest of the lows, the addicts, all that. This was the guy that was willing to see them and was, he was their preferred guru. So, all right, so Ram Dass is convinced this guy's the real deal. He knows everything about me. He still loves me. I'm in. And he stays there for like a couple of years. He's devoted to this guy. He becomes one of his disciples. He's like kneeling at his feet,
Hmm.
half the day. And he brings his other Jewish academic friends over to study this guy, and they test him. They give him acid. They test him with like machinery and stuff, and he's marveling them, and basically they're always asking him, "How do we become like you? What's the secret? What's it all about? How do we become like you?" Over and over they ask him, and he never tells them. And I'm paraphrasing here. People can go read all the books about it if they want, but he eventually says to them, one day they finally ask him, and he finally tells them. They said, "What's the meaning of life? How do we become enlightened? What's it all about?" And he looks at them, and he gives them two answers. Number one, feed people. Feed people. Not just like give them money, but feed them.
Mm-hmm.
That's better.
Feed my little sheep, like Christ said.
When you feed someone, you remove one of their survival impulses, instincts for the day, one of their necessities, and you give them more of a chance to focus on enlightenment, as they would say over there. Now, what was the other thing Neem Karoli Baba said to Ram Dass? Be like Jesus Christ. Follow Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the way. Variations of that. Okay? Can you imagine being a Jewish academic in the heyday of the hippie revolution, and you crossed all the way to India, all the way through the jungles, all the way to the temple. You proved yourself to the guru and went through the ordeals, and that's what he tells you?
To follow the best Jew?
Well, yes and no. See, Jesus Christ was not Jewish at all.
Not by his lineage, or was he not an Essene or something?
Okay, so how about this? When you say Jewish, what's your definition?
Just his mother was. I thought his mother was from like a good family, even in that thing.
Right. So, did he live in the kingdom of Judea? Yes.
Right. That's what I thought it is Judea. Judaism.
Well, hang on. There's an evolution to the term Jew. There's
after the temple, and they have no remission for sin. Is that what you're talking about?
There's a conflation.
Yehudi, they were called, I thought.
Yeah. So there's 12 tribes, ideally. 14 maybe. And one of them is Judah. The Judahites have a special role when it comes to the Holy Land. They're like the stewards. You could say they're the kings, the judges, the magistrates, but permanently their role is steward of the Holy Land. So when all the other tribes were removed and exiled, only the Judahites got to stay.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
With some exceptions. So there's members of Benjamin and Levi who kind of tagged along with the Judahites, but it was only the Judahites, generally speaking, who were left in the Holy Land to watch over it. As these, there's the Babylonian captivity. There's
the two-tribe kingdom still there,
and there's the Assyrians. So what happens over time? Remember, Judah is separate from Israel, which is so ironic. Ironic that today it's the Jews pushing for a land named Israel, when in ancient times the Judahites and the Israelites were neighbors who would often war with each other.
Right.
I mean, they often.
I mean, it's in the Bible too.
Yeah. So Israel is actually, Judah is at times an enemy of Israel, if we're being real technical in certain instances. So it's very rich that they're calling it Israel, the home of the Jews, when actually Israel is a covenant open to all of the tribes and all of their descendants.
That's right.
Today they're saying, no, Israel's just for the Jews. That's very ironic.
The thing is, dude, Zionism is so fucking crazy because it's so
it's
like you're not picking, when that Khazarian shit, the guy who came up with that was a Jewish guy trying to prove that like it's not like, hey, look, it's not your race that matters. It's a religion, not a race. He's trying to prove with that. And to this day, there's people that will tell you the Khazarian thing, which is, I think it's a real false end, but
well,
I'm
yes
not
and
into,
no.
I'm not into the ethnic, I'm into ethno states to that degree. where then it becomes a sin. Your sin is like in your blood. Again, it's like your blood's a moral failing at that point. Where I'm like, that's not.
When we pay attention to the Bible, we have a nice, clear trajectory. The Bible is not a 100% perfect manual for good conduct. Okay, the Bible is
It's a library that justifies Christ. I thought
it's a little, yes, that's a good way to say it.
all the stories are to that end.
Another way to say it is an honest record of man's origins, his original design, his shortcomings, his failures, his triumphs, his humility, his arrogance, hubris, and redemptions, multiple redemptions, and ultimately the grand redemption and the departure from the Old Testament way of life, the Old Testament code of conduct. And so, as much as we can pick out, offensive verses from the Old Testament, those are all necessary to show us what we're being led away from. And
I think that too.
Led out of,
Right. I think I think a lot of people sell that short. And
so people are like, oh, Yahweh's a genocidal maniac, and it's like, okay, what country didn't massacre their neighbors or massacre their enemies?
Right.
And basically,
but also, first of all, to say he's genocidal, so there's no. It's like the context of now, like every other fucking thing. It's like you have no concept of the context. I'll tell you a very valuable thing. Why Jay Parker on, who's from Arden, Delaware, and his mother claimed that she is like some generation of Malachite. Maybe, I'm sure. Look, I don't believe these people are all who they say they are, but let's say I started scamming 1400 and I said we're Amalekites. I'm sure that could go a while. So when you meet blood lickers and when you hear what the fuck they were, you're like, oh, I get why you're genociding the cannibal blood licker fucking scumbag people. That's not hard to understand.
And some real normies, like huge normies, and I say that in an endearing way. Some of the biggest normies in the world have done some of the best research on what exactly were those people who were being genocided or warred against in the Old Testament. What was their lifestyle like? And
it's crazy.
Boy, if there's ever been a lifestyle that was worth wiping off the face of the planet, it was theirs. Because the Philistines, for example, some of those, who are else? Jebusites, some of those other, groups.
Who was it? The Midianite, was it Midianites that worship Baal of Peor, which is like master of holes, and so you got to shit on each other?
If you go look at some of their religious like artwork and stuff, I mean, these people were infatuated with bestiality.
Yeah,
they were obsessed with.
That's why you had to kill the animals too. It was like a nuclear contamination, not a.
Well, until Islam comes around, and I think the Talmud in Islam has a fresh perspective on that. They say, definitely Islam, maybe the Talmud says.
No, it's Talmud for sure. I don't know about Islam. But
you can't have sex with an animal, and you don't have to kill it. You just have to sell the meat to the town over from you. You can't sell it to your own town. You have to get rid of that animal in another town.
Imagine if America had a moral standard that high. Okay, wait, so because they sell us the meat. Okay, wait, but wait, oh fuck, you just brought up a great point that okay, so you said before that about Christ being reflection. Remember the things okay. That's like the law. So he's the fulfillment of the law, right? And the law is a reflection of you. The law is always a reflection of you. That's like, hey, why do we have laws against bestiality? Because it was a problem.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of how you suck. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
And that's why Christ claims to be the fulfillment of the law, if I'm not mistaken.
Totally. I've heard a great historian, I think it was Ed Kritzler, a Jewish guy who wrote The Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean. In his book, he wrote something like, something to the effect of, you can tell what a culture's favorite vices and pastimes were based off what was outlawed in the following years.
It is a mirror. Yep.
Like in Florida, we have laws that are like, bank. This is like a folklore, so don't grill me on this, but bank windows must have a midget-sized window because the circus used to be in town in certain
that makes sense.
in certain cities here in Florida. The circus would camp, and for the same reason, they'd say you have to park your elephant a certain way in Florida
Right.
because the circus was camped here, and the laws responded to that. It's a you don't have an elephant parking law unless the circus is in town. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So the Bible is kind of like that too. You don't have to condemn or leave. For example, people get so offended by Abraham and Isaac, the child sacrifice story.
Boy, that's one I
for
went back and forth on quite a
well,
lot.
hang on.
And yeah,
Now the context is everything here.
it is. You're exactly
The
right.
context is everything.
Because
If
that's what they all do.
Exactly. If Abraham just woke up one day and said, "All right, God, what am I going to do? My favorite God, the one good God of everything." And God just comes up with this new idea. Hey, how about you go sacrifice your kid? And I know it doesn't play out like that. It's not written like that. But if that's the case, then a logical conclusion would be this is an evil God. This is a cruel God. But God also says he's jealous. God also literally calls himself envious or
Mhm.
jealous, Now, it's and I forgive me for
Is it the same word?
I'm almost going to I'm getting real close to blaspheming here, but there's almost like a toxic girlfriend relationship where it's like
Hmm.
if you were willing to go that low for her, are you willing to go that low for me?
Yeah, right.
Does
Well,
that make sense? Like
no,
God,
I think it's a similar thing. That how I used to view it was, well, first the way they taught it to us was that he had a son when he's 100 and he didn't think he could, and it was like to teach it. I don't
right,
believe this now, but as a teacher, God giveth into some bullshit like that. But
right,
then I was like, oh, in the original story, he comes down without his son. He did sacrifice him. Then very recently, somewhat, I forgot. Oh, Abraham was not like Jewish or something. He was the religion of his dad, and they all sacrificed their kids. So he had found this other God who goes, okay, now go take your son. And so, of course, the reason he obeyed was because that's what you did if a God told you to do that. And then when he
hmm
went up and God said, no, you don't have to do that. I don't do that kind of shit. I'm just letting you
hmm
know. Like,
yeah,
so I think it's not even as jealous as how you're saying. It's this is what Abraham thinks is a normal way to live. The same way as if you went to a bad neighborhood or you lived in a shitty country where it's normal to do all kinds of fucked up shit.
yeah,
You would think it's okay, and you need to be taught that I'm different than that.
yeah,
So it's not him like just doing a mind game on Abraham or whatever. I mean, I guess it is, but it's to get him out of his current mind game that they all
yes,
live in. Is how I take it now.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. It's a departure from
Right.
child sacrifice. It's
But you don't
literally
have that context. And even when I was
yes,
Christian, ostensibly, I didn't have that
but
context.
remember, Christians have, and I love the Bible. I love the King James Bible. I believe that's the Word of God. I'm a full blown
Even if
I
King
believe.
James is a homo, I'm joking. Yeah.
See, okay, and Hitler had one ball, right?
Well, I wouldn't judge
that's
him. Duncan has
that's
one ball. I don't
and
judge him.
and Trump is a racist, genocidal.
Well, Trump covered up the Epstein files, so even if he didn't rape a child, he's fucking worse for covering it up.
No, no, no. Listen, see, I'm a Trump lover too. Okay, I'm a Trump tard for life, and I'm not gonna
Well,
let
that's
that.
not very Christian of you.
That's not true. Trump's a greater option. That's actually not true. If you read the New Testament, especially the especially Christian perspective is not to be like not to be like you know, a bootlicker, but basically, uh, all authority is God given. You don't. You. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm
I'm sorry,
allowing them
Kurt.
to exist, but
I'm sorry, Kurt,
yeah.
but we don't choose our boss. We don't choose.
Yes, we do. We literally vote for them. They're supposed to work for us. They're not
Not
our boss.
always.
We are supposed to be the boss. You see how turned around this is? By the way, I don't vote because I'm not a fucking sucker. But Trump, this is the biggest rug pull
You
I've ever
should vote.
seen.
You should vote. It's not. It's not being a
Please,
sucker.
there's only the 4-class system. That's all there is. Everything
Now
else is
about
for
this.
show.
Hang on, Kurt. Hang on.
How about we were at war
What do you
again
have
after we
to?
promised not to do that? How
What
about
do you
that?
have? What do you have to lose by going out and voting? Taking a half hour and going out to vote?
Wasting my oh, I'll tell you what I have to lose. My fucking
No. What's the real thing that we're bothered by? What's the real thing
being
that?
suckered.
There
I
you
find
go.
I take it real
Exactly.
hard. I take it real hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, thank you for having the courage to say that because that's exactly what it is. People don't want to feel like a sucker.
Are people afraid to
Now,
say that?
a lot of people are. When it comes to voting, yeah, they'll say, "Oh, by not voting, I'm doing my part in combating the system." No, it's really
Well,
not
I'm on a news
feeling
show.
like a
Here's look,
sucker.
just so you understand where I'm coming from. I'm on a fucking news show for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Finding out not the news that is on that is all a fucking North Korea level propaganda lie, the actual events, and you can go by their actions. You don't got to go by rhetoric or nothing else. And so it's fucking traumatizing. You know, I had to fucking watch after October 7th a bunch of motherfuckers on the border of Gaza. They're starving kids on one side, and these fucks set up a carnival of popcorn, shit kids like, so that they can watch them eat in front of them. We've covered that, and it disturbed me until now. I'm still upset about it. There's dozens and dozens more of those, it turns out, those videos. So this is not someone exposing what they did. This was them bragging about what they do. And fucking Trump allows that. Fuck you for that, motherfucker. They own us. And it's not the Jews. I got nothing against the Jews. I have a huge problem, though, with murdering kids like it's okay. Like, hey, you got to make some eggs. You got to break some eggs, make an omelet. Anybody that says that, it ain't no fucking Christian. Because there ain't no omelet coming, motherfuckers. I don't know who I'm talking to now. All right. Dude, we got to wrap up. This is a really good... dude, I was great talking to you, man. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sorry, man. You know, we
don't have time to get into this, but call in Mystery Boys. We're getting more... Mystery Boys is more like... You know, this is where I more talk with people and get... But I found a lot of great shit from you that I had never heard of in my life, so I really appreciate it. Plug whatever you want to plug, dude.
Old World Florida on YouTube. The bookstore here is the Dancing Elephant Bookstore in Palm Beach County, Florida. If anyone's in Florida,
I'm coming to Florida this month.
Come on by if you're going south to Palm Beach County.
You don't have a copy of a book called Astrogenetics, do you, from 1970 by Van Dusen?
I don't think we have that one, but we've got...
I'm dying to pick it up.
We are one of the oldest bookstores in Florida. We're the largest metaphysical religious bookstore in Florida. Been around since 1972. And, you know, people like it here. My subscribers, you know, love this place. And anyone who wants to come in, you'll certainly find some great conspiracy theory, occult stuff. We publish books too. My brother runs our publishing company, which is Gallo Glass Books. We just released another one. And Kurt, you're friends with Duncan. Duncan actually did a advertisement for our publishing company in our last book that we released, which was our first one was Monad. Our second one was Giordano Bruno.
That's Ra the Strago from that family line.
And then our new one is Confessions of an English Opium Eater, which is a pretty cool, like, drug culture.
Who wrote that?
It was Thomas De Quincey. Let me check real quick.
I've heard of that book. That's it. That's fucking
Thomas De Quincey, and he was kind of like a gonzo journalist. Not really, but he was like one of the first drug culture kind of figures, and he the introduction for our book was written by Hamilton Morris, who's you know from Vice.
I'm gonna get him on. Yeah, Hamilton from Hamilton Pharmacopoeia.
Yeah,
his dad is Errol Morris, the documentarian. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he worked on this book with us, and it's a pretty cool book about, you know, drug culture and all that stuff if you're into it. But yeah, anyone who's in South Florida, come by and check out our bookstore. It's great stuff.
All right. Well, August 7th and 8th, that's this weekend. I'm in Tampa at Side Splitters. Then August 20th, I'm in Gainesville, Florida. August 21st, St. Augustine. August 22nd, Sanford, Orlando area. Wait, I was going to give you the thing to buy. Hold on one sec. Punch Up Live, you can go look up Kurt Metzger, and you can buy tickets for those shows. Is Gainesville or St. I forget where Palm Beach is. What's it close to?
Palm Beach is like as far east as you can go in Florida. It's southeast. It's like an hour north of Miami.
I'm kind of far from it. I want to go to that bookstore though. It sounds good. There's all these books I'm trying to find that and then sometimes I get stuff that I didn't know I wanted until I go there and look through it, you know?
Yeah. We're mostly new books, so we don't have like all the ancient grimoires and stuff like that.
I'm hoping to get the Never-Ending Story book from the
and old books are overrated. I'll say that. People think like older's better. That's rarely true with books.
Well, not just that. There's some books that if you get the digital ones, and more than I would have thought, they'll alter shit. So if you'd like to read Jeffrey Dahmer's dad's book, remember Jeffrey Dahmer's dad wrote a book
No.
about. Yeah, that's a weird thing to do when your son's Jeffrey. I mean, it's weird if your kid's successful to do that. I think you're a piece of shit, but your son's Jeffrey Dahmer. You write a book about your life. So his dad talks about doing NLP and hypnosis and having a control freak thing. And he basically sexually assaulted a young girl across the street who was probably 11 or 12 at a certain age. That he wrote that in the fucking book.
Dad did that, or Jeffrey did that?
The dad did that. And that's why when you watch the interview where dad's holding Jeff's hand, I bet there's more to that story than people think. The point is they edited that out in the digital version. You can't get it. You have to have the original book. I love Joseph P. Farrell stuff. He won't do like a lot of digital things, as the shit will be changed in a lot of these books. So it's not that they're so old. It's just I want the ones that haven't been altered, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. You don't want something altered. But what I meant more is just like old books are a headache. Keeping them preserved.
Yeah, I know.
Keeping them. It's just rarely worth it. You really have to, it has to be a passion,
Well, sometimes I got this book, it's what's it called? Long head, short head, or what's the matter with Germans? It's one of my favorite. Some phrenology thing about how it's like one. I just love that.
Is it Isaac Taylor?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah. What's the matter with Germans? Around World War I era.
Oh, I don't know. It sounds like Isaac. Isaac Taylor was this guy who's all into the Phoenicians and the Bible, and something else. If we ever talk again, I'd love to talk about British Israelism.
That's a very fertile topic. Yeah, that's a good idea.
British Israelism is the topic of all topics. It is the rabbit hole that all other rabbit holes are tracing back to today. It is the origin of Zionism. It's the origin. How did the Jewish people get Israel today? Well, the British handed it to them on a silver platter. And British Israelism was the fuel to this British Jewish war machine that was behind the world wars, and lots of good stuff. But
I'm way into that. Richard Grove is my rabbi. The long heads and round heads, or I love old books say or. They have two possible. What's the matter with Germany? A 1918 book by American psychiatrist William S. Sadler, and it's like how I don't know, like the mountain Germans were okay, but the southern one it's hilarious.
Hang on,
yeah.
So I know we got to go, but there's a really cool theory on that.
Yeah.
With phrenology and all this that I've come to believe. I love phrenology. I'm thinking I'm going to start a show called Phrenology Fridays.
You call Mystery Boys with that? That'd be good. Yeah. Okay.
Well, basically, these people realized, these British Israelites, a lot of them, stumbled onto this theory that I believe is true, that Catholicism and Protestantism are not matters of conviction or belief or persuasion.
Of your head shape.
Yes. Okay. Yes. The Teutonic, it's a fact. All of the Teutonic races are largely Protestant.
Right.
All of the Mediterranean, and I'm generalizing here, the more Southern European, the more non-European, the Irish, for example, have all this weird phantom DNA.
Yeah, right.
So basically, all the Catholic countries in Europe have large ethnic or even anatomical, distinctions between them and the surrounding populations. So Catholicism is a certain head shape. Protestantism is and just not to be rude here, but Protestantism is the larger cranial capacity. It is the critical thinking in the front of the head. And just real quick, Kurt, Sarah and Abram. Sarah and Abram. In Judaism, we have Sarah and Abram. In Hinduism, we have Saraswati and Brahma.
Right.
Abram and Sarah. Brahma and Saraswati. They're both consorts, and they're both almost like brother sister. That they also have that in common. Now, did you know? And personally, I believe that's where Jewish culture splits off from larger Indo-Aryan culture.
I think so too, man. I think that's too, because even when you're talking before with Ram Dass going over there, this has happened before. Where's fucking reincarnation coming out
Yeah.
in Judaism unless they were, you know?
Yeah. And the Bactrians were a Greek colony, a Buddhist Greek colony over there in like Afghanistan and shit.
Mhm. Oh, right. Yeah.
But basically, God's chosen people are set apart not just by blood, okay? It's anatomical as well.
But by
This Sarah, Kurt, this is going to blow your mind. Sarah and
Mm-hmm.
Abram, put those names together, and what does it sound like?
Sir Abraham.
The cerebrum. The Sarah.
Oh, right.
The Sarah Abram is the front. This is the decision making. This is the high society is all stemming from this.
Is that the etymology of those words though? Like for real?
Not officially. That's some language of the birds right there. That's some.
Well, sometimes I'll think like, oh no, that word's not based on. Then I'll find out later it was indeed, and I was misled. You know.
Well, Kurt, studying Adam and Eve, I learned about the language of the birds. Back in Adam's time, language, sound, and meaning were inseparable.
Right.
Inseparable. Okay. This is why puns are so funny. They tickle a very ancient part of us.
Mm-hmm.
Freud, for as screwed up as he was, he got one thing right. Puns are the language of the unconscious mind.
Yeah, Twilight language. Yeah, they are.
Puns.
If you talk, they'll go read all the fucking, every victim of these things will tell you the language of being spoken at. They're doing fucking puns at them. In fact, that's in Kathy O'Brien's fucking book, where she describes the guys, and I'm like, what's with all the puns?
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? But it's because it's that NLP shit. I had Michael Hoffman on because Twilight language is really fucking great.
Well,
book.
Puns,
yeah.
This is how mythology works, okay? You ever hear people like wig out on like English, saying like, "Ooh, English is a slave language. English is a..." That's BS. That's another one of those.
I never heard that it was a slave. I thought
yeah, that's another.
Which version of it?
That's another one of those acid tests.
There we go.
Someone.
Oh, it's more. Oh, shit. I gotta wrap it up, dude. Well, I'll just bring you back. We'll get into it. But it was great talking to you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate it.
All right, that's the show. You got derped, everybody. Don't come crying to me. You didn't get derped because you did.